Right, Keith gave us a signal.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for August 23rd, 2022. First, we have approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? You can't hear me?
The microphones aren't working.
It appears to be working.
Try again. Can someone test?
Testing. No? Okay.
Testing. Hello? Yes. You can hear? Okay. Just speak in a little more.
Get right in it.
Get right in it? Okay. Can you hear me now? Is Keith testing? They're doing something, okay. Okay, we're almost ready.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Well, you have a strong voice. Testing. Testing.
Can you hear me?
I'm going to have to no vote that.
Testing.
Behave, Preston,
I think
behave.
Jeanette's is the only one that's having problems.
Yeah. Test. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Test. Am I okay?
Is that Dean? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Are we set, are we good to go?
Test it again.
Testing. Testing. Okay. Are we good to go? Okay, I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for August 23rd, 2022. First, we have approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. City Attorney, is it correct that we have no closed session?
That is correct. Nope.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Please join us in a moment of silence. And Councilmember Hampton, would you lead us in the pledge?
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next, we have public comment time. Is anyone signed up on the sheet to make public comment?
Good evening. I'm beating a dead horse to death. Months ago, we passed a law about commercial construction vehicles on Manassas Parks roads, in the yards and everything. And I waited for a couple of months. They said, hold it. The mayor, matter of fact, she turned around and asked Calvin Klein, what's the process? He said, I'm getting ready to send notices out in 2 weeks. So that's the reason I haven't been back, because 2 weeks has gone by months and months and months. The other day I came out, I leave my house at 5:15 in the morning, 17 of them from my house to the railroad tracks. 17 of them just sitting on Alpine, Colfax, and Manassas Drive. It's hard to say what's on the side. If we're gonna have the law, enforce it. I volunteer. They can come by and pick me up. I ride around with them, show them the vehicles. You know, it's up to y'all. If you ain't gonna enforce it, take it off the books. And number two, let me get going. Up here through Blooms, you got speeding enforcement, $200 fine. I want radar. One of y'all cars almost got broadsided down here Friday at Colfax and Manassas Drive because people fly down Manassas Drive. as I call it, the idiot sign tells you how fast you're going. I've seen cars doing 40, 50 miles an hour. You know, we need to do something before someone seriously gets injured or a big-time lawsuit. You know, I already explained to the chief, you know, so I'm just letting y'all know we need to do something. If not, take the signs down. You ain't going to have radar. Take them down and trash them. Plain and simple. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Kendall Gardner?
Mayor, I am timing over here, just so you know.
Timing. Thank you, Dee.
Okay. My name is Kendall Gardner. I live at 114 Martin Drive. And that's kind of hard to follow. But the reason why I'm here, as I have been in the past, I brought up many different issues to the City Council. I've even come up and asked the City Council if the items are something that they can't deal with, if they would let me know who I need to speak with. That has not happened. The list is getting larger and larger. Nothing's getting done. I've been coming up here for, about 6 months now. And I guess that falls into his issues too, that you bring things up and nothing gets done. But I guess a building gets built and a lot of money gets spent here at City of Manassas Park, but nothing gets done about deleting evidence in a criminal investigation, potential tax fraud created by the city, decals where I come up and gave a check to the city manager and told him specifically what it was for. It was not applied according to that. And since that time, I've been turned into a collection agency by the City of Manassas Park. And then the water and sewer issue that the city manager had asked me to give him details on, which I did. And I sent it out, I guess it was the last time I came to the meeting because I talked with Councilman Banks and he said about receiving my email. I received no response at all from the city government. Not sure why, but I guess that falls in the same category as this gentleman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone who is not signed up to make public comment but who would still like to make public comment? Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, we'll go on to number 4A. This is a resolution. Delegate Danica Rome has a resolution commending the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue. Welcome, Delegate Rome.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Would you like me to speak here or over there, or where's your preference here at your
Where's the
new humble
reception
abode?
better?
It's your discretion, but that might.
Okay, that'll be just fine. All right, well, first, good evening to your new house. This is nice. Well done. So, to start with tonight, basically this year in the Virginia General Assembly, along with passing a lot of bills, which I discussed earlier at the end of our wrap-up session, we also passed some resolutions because we really want to acknowledge the great work that some of our citizens in the city of Manassas Park, as well as the public service employees here, have actually done for the city here. And in particular, we wanted to genuinely show a lot of gratitude to the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department, and I know we have one of our representatives here tonight. So I'd like to read this if you'd like to come on up and receive this. So this is House Resolution number 197. And by the way, just for what it's worth, I live in Blooms Mill, so I'm literally across the street. I am Manassas Park adjacent, and I have to pass the police department or the fire department literally every day. So thank you for not hitting my car. I really appreciate it. Anyways, it says, whereas the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department has greatly served the residents of Manassas Park by protecting the community, responding to a variety of emergencies, and providing education and community outreach. And whereas established in 1965, when Manassas Park was still a town in Prince William County, the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department became its own agency when the town was incorporated as the city of Manassas Park 10 years later. And whereas in 1992, the city of Manassas dissolved the Department of Public Safety Director position and established the position of Fire Chief, installing Captain Rick Grove as the first in a series of accomplished firemen who fulfill the role. And whereas over the years, the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department has continually upgraded its facilities, equipment, and operational strategies to enhance its ability to protect the community. And whereas the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department is a visible presence in the community with various outreach event offerings, offering opportunities for members to interact with residents and to teach them more about fire safety and the work of the department, and whereas to teach young people about fire prevention in the city and safety, the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department visits many schools and daycare centers in the community during Fire Prevention Month every October, while providing station tours to youth groups throughout the year. And whereas the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department helps homeowners prepare for emergencies by providing courteous home safety surveys while offering pre-plan and walkthrough services to businesses and high occupancy residential buildings to ensure that they are ready for whatever danger. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the House delegates that the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department hereby be commended for its service and outreach in the Manassas Park community, and be it resolved further that the clerk of the House of Delegates prepare a copy of this resolution for presentation to the Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department as an expression of the House of Delegates' admiration for the agency's contributions to the Commonwealth, signed by G. Paul Nardo, Clerk of the House of Delegates, patroned by yours truly. Congratulations. Thank you very much. And one of the things that really spurred us, to really want to do this in the first place in my office. So when I was living right off Manassas Drive over at the Elm Signal Hill Station, right at the beginning of COVID, so I had just moved in that March and it was April, every night that I would hear ambulance or I would hear fire engine, something going down Manassas Drive, this is before vaccines were available, before anything else, every single time I heard, and all of us thinking about was how these people were putting themselves in harm's way, and they were being the ones when someone else was scared, when someone else was hurting, when someone else needed someone, when we didn't even know what we were up against. And they put themselves on the line to take care of people, and they put the public's safety first. That's why they deserve that and everything that can go with it. So thank you so much, Chief, for all you do.
Thank you very much, Delegate Rome, and thank you, Deputy Chief Jones, for being here this evening. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to 6A. 6A is a briefing on HB 632, new exhaust and muffler law.
All right, can you all hear me? You guys able to hear me? Okay. No? What about now?
Perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna hold it up here then. We're going to get a longer microphone for this booth here. Okay. Okay, so you'll notice you will be able to see this presentation on both screens. Ms. Kelly Evans will be broadcasting from that one. Again, not all screens are connected yet. We're still working through that, but we at least want to have our presentations on two screens for residents and for governing body members on that side and for this side as well. So I was asked to give an update on the new loud exhaust muffler law, whatever you want to call it, that came out that Fairfax County and other jurisdictions sent some information about, and we did some research. We sat down with our police department, who's here as well, Chief Lugo, as part of a Q&A at the end if you have any additional questions for how this is actually enforced. So I'm just going to quickly summarize what actually the law did, and then what decision you guys have, if any, if you want to take the decision for how you want to modify this for the city of Manassas Park. So first, the big thing that this did, it really doesn't impact our city ordinance. It just really impacts how police is able to enforce this. What it did is it changed it from a secondary traffic offense to a primary offense. And what that means, if it's secondary offense, the police department can't stop a vehicle for that infraction. But they can ticket them for that infraction if they stop them for another infraction. Does that make sense? For a primary offense, they can stop a vehicle for that infraction. So now that it's a primary offense, if there is a car that's violating the excessive noise through the muffler, the police now can stop them for that and ticket them for that purpose. And again, this has already been enforced from the police department. It was just they weren't able to stop a vehicle for this purpose. They can only ticket them secondarily from another traffic stop. So our police are already trained on how to enforce this law. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And the other change that's really more relevant to our city code, if you want to make any amendments, is that it's no longer limited to just the vehicles doing this within 500 feet of a residential district. code perspective, the governing body action, if you want to direct us to bring this back to you at a future meeting, the only change really would be we delete the within 500 feet of residential district, but everything else in our code will remain the same. And that's all I have, and again, like I said, Chief Lugo is here if you have any specific questions for how this law is enforced.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know who the best person is to answer this question, but are we allowed to segment where it can be enforced? So if we didn't want all of Euclid Avenue, if we wanted Euclid in front of the schools, would be allowed to do that? Or is it it's all or none?
Maybe, Dean, that's something where you can help us out with. If we designate specific
Well, I wanted
areas.
to pull up the actual code and see what
Okay.
it says.
Okay.
I don't remember it saying anything to that effect, but I don't think we have to do a blanket across the city. So let me just check real quick,
Yeah.
and I might have to get back to you a little bit later once I find that answer.
And, Chief, I guess the best way to ask this question is, now that this has gone into effect, have we had instances where we've had ticketed people for the loud mufflers?
In the past, yes, but since this law changed July 1st, no.
Okay. And I know that residents have complained about the noise, I know that much. That's all the questions I have.
I'm sorry, can you please speak directly?
I said that's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. And we'll provide an answer to Councilmember Hampton's question at a later time. Dean will. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes of July 21st, 2022, approval of the appointment of Francis Rath to the Community Services Board for the vacant term that will expire on December 31st, 2022, adoption of ordinance to authorize city manager to designate surplus items for auction, adoption of resolution in support of the U.S. Department of Transportation's Safe Streets for All grant application, and acceptance of any funding received as a result of that application, approval and authorization for city manager to sign any needed documents for the purchase of Neptune water meters and Neptune coder registers from Core and Main for an amount not to exceed $36,000, subject to final review by city attorney. Authorization for city manager to sign a purchase order with Wireless Communications to purchase Motorola radios for an amount not to exceed $33,479.64, subject to final review by city attorney. Approve and authorize city manager to sign the fleet services agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management as presented and subject to final review by city attorney. Ratification of the signing of the contract of Carousel for the purchase and installation of next-gen 911 system for $279,757.25, and ratification of the signing of the contract with Republic for the financing of the Carousel purchase at an interest rate of 4.09% for a cost of $22,886.25. Do we have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to 8A. 8A is discussion of Prince William County Human Rights Commission participation. As some background on this, the city has received an offer to participate in the Prince William County Human Rights Commission. There was a public presentation by the Human Rights Commission at the July 19th meeting. The additional governing body questions that were forwarded to Mr. Raul Torres, he's the executive director of the commission. There were several options offered for our consideration, and the purpose of this agenda item is to have a discussion on that topic. We do not yet have all the answers to the extra questions that were submitted, so the discussion may not be as complete as we would like it to be, but let's begin the discussion. Any comments?
Yes, sorry. Just looking for my notes.
Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I mean, my concern, I think I brought this up before is that the EEOC is a free service that anybody could use, Manassas Park, Prince William, Fairfax. I just don't understand why we would pay into Prince William County when the service is essentially free. You know, that's my only hesitation on this.
That's your main concern?
Yeah.
Okay, no. I would be open and agreeable to any one of the options that have been discussed, or really any permutation of those options. Let me share my thoughts with you. You had mentioned the cost aspect. I think what Prince William County is offering to us is more or less a turnkey operation. Nothing is cost-free. There's a cost also to staff time. There may also be certification and recertification requirements in order to qualify for the full authority to act and to enforce on EEOC matters, much like the Prince William County Human Rights Commission does currently. So I would just mention that in the hopes that we would consider that when we have our deliberations. Any other comments? Yeah. Yes, Councilmember.
Yeah, well, I appreciate Councilmember DeWitt's concerns, because it isn't free, and the EOC isn't there available. But our residents would have to go into Richmond or to DC if they wanted an in-person file. I understand they can do it online, but there's all kinds of other services that the commission provides other than just EEOC, which is mostly dealing with discrimination as it relates to work. But there's all kinds of forms of discrimination. And I'm just not sure why it's good for the county of Prince William to have this commission and these protections offered by this commission and not the 17,000 residents of Manassas Park, particularly if it's cost effective. Now, we don't have all the answers before us. I mean, I'm very concerned that if we're going to be playing this game and be a participant, then we should have a seat at the table. We should have a member of Manassas Park on the commission. We've not gotten that response yet. So I'm still open, but I do think it's something we need to continue to investigate. We need to continue to research, because at the end of the day, I think our residents will benefit by having a local office here in Manassas Park where if they have any concerns of discrimination or harassment, that they can go and file a complaint. That's my concern.
My understanding was that if we were a member, if we were to sign an agreement with the Prince William County Human Rights Commission, that they would offer the full spectrum of services that they offer to their own folks. Is that correct? I know we don't have the answers to our questions.
And that was my understanding as well, the full
Was that
spectrum
true?
of services, other
Okay.
than just employment discrimination,
Yeah.
which is what the EEOC does.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, well,
Any
go
other
ahead.
comments?
Is it okay?
Vice Mayor Banks, did you?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that the services that they offer, I believe truly we can bring that in-house, right? We have the housing director that could handle most of the discriminatory in housing-related issues. But then we have the social service department as well that could handle employment or any economic issues with personal, private businesses as well. So again, I mean, we're growing our team, our staff, and you know, it's something that I think we should consider doing this in-house in the next couple of years instead of doing shared services like we've done in the past, which we have no control over the cost, no control over, like you said, representation, no control in an appointment of any members from Manassas Park. We don't know if they're going to have an office in Manassas Park. You know, so there's too many unknowns, and I know this is just an introductory discussion, but
Our participation could be contingent upon having an appointment to the Human Rights Commission.
Absolutely.
Can I just comment on the internal, Madam Mayor? Can I speak on the internal staffing? Because I probably want to do more research before because a lot of the social services funding is heavily funded by the state, but for specific parameters of work that they can and can't do, that we'd risk funding from the state if they're taking on those other responsibilities. But again, not to say that it's not a done deal, but I think probably for that aspect, I'd rather just hire the inspector. The housing one could be a good one, but again, I'd have to look at all the training requirements, certification requirements before they could do that. And then more importantly, I think there's a significant legal component to it as well, that if you go to Prince William County, they already have the county attorney's office structured to have that legal representation to support the Prince William Human Rights Commission. We would have to review what that impact would be for us to manage that in-house. So I just want to comment on that from an in-house perspective.
And that's why I
Thank you.
agree that
Councilmember Moore, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say that it's my understanding that it takes a very unique set of skills to be able to investigate human rights violations and violations of harassment and sexual discrimination and things of that nature. Then I'm not sure we have the bandwidth to go back again to our staff and ask them to do that level of detail. I mean, it's almost, yeah, it's very in-depth. And as far as cost containment, I totally agree, Councilmember Steve, that we have to, in the memorandum of understanding that we sign, have a clear understanding of the escalation of costs and just what they are, and make sure that we don't have just a blank check that we're giving the county. I would not be willing to approve something like that going forward.
I understand what you're saying about the skill set that would be required. That's why I mentioned certification and perhaps even recertification for those folks. Councilmember Mensing?
Yeah, I just want to add that in addition to cost details and the representation details, I would like to know where the closest office for our residents would be in this memorandum of understanding.
Well, I think Mr. Torres said if we were to participate, we would set aside some office space here in the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would also want to see how the education outreach in Manassas Park will be conducted.
Okay. Yeah, their outreach was one of the questions that we forwarded to them, how they do it in Prince William County. So that would be a clue as to how they might do it here as well. Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
I wanted to mention two things, right? And I don't want to call anyone out, but I've been involved in the EEO process for discrimination I've experienced at the workplace. And it wasn't pleasant, right? It's not fun to go through. And to contact someone, an investigator, a counselor, there are certain timelines they have to meet, to Councilmember Javet's point. So it's not like you're not going to get service when you contact the EEOC. I felt so comfortable talking to someone over the phone versus in person, because it's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. It's very uncomfortable. I just felt better over the phone. And I handled it over the phone, never in person. So I don't think you really need someone in person. You just need someone to be there that's responsive. And with those timelines, you got it there. They have to investigate. They have to follow up. You've got forms to fill out. And then you begin the informal investigation and the formal investigation, and then there's mediation even before that. So there's timelines, and the EEOC does a good job of it. The second point is enforcement is great to have, right? It's great, but the main thing is the other end. You have to look at the other part of this, and that is who you hire, how you evaluate your policies and procedures, how you treat your employees and each other. That's the main part that I think that we can focus on. It doesn't cost any money. And if you can address this part, you don't have to worry about enforcement, no matter if it's EEOC or the Prince William Human Rights Commission. And this is the main part. So that's what I want to emphasize on, just to make sure our focus is in the right place. Let's just address this issue in the heart of it, and that is, let's make sure we don't discriminate and we treat our employees and each other fairly, and with kindness and and with respect. But I also support Councilmember Javet's point of using the free service of EEOC. It's really, it's not a loss to use them, based on my personal experience.
For me, I want to see how, my questions that are still pending, how many Manassas Park residents, have been affected by it, have been served. What is the model that they're going to charge us? I'm not denying that there is a need for EEOC. My late uncle actually worked for EEOC. So I understand the importance of it, but this is also a dollar and cents matter when we have many competing priorities. So I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes, I'm saying give me some more information, and I know it's coming.
We absolutely do, yeah. Are there any other comments or questions?
I mean, I just want to make one, I guess, metaphor. It's just like, we have the DMV, right, that services the whole jurisdiction. And if we turn around and say, hey, Manassas Park wants its own DMV, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? The service is already there, and why not utilize it? They also have legal representation if the applicant needs it, and it just services, and it's better to not, spend money, and we could just spend that money on an outreach program instead. Let our community know that, hey, the EOC will service you.
Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, I appreciate that example, but, driving is not a right, it's a privilege.
Well, there's a metaphor here.
Civil rights is, and the discrimination.
And I'm not saying there's no discrimination.
Right.
I'm not saying that.
So the point is that EEOC only investigates labor and job discrimination. There are all kinds of other, only discriminates labor discrimination. What about all the other sets of discrimination?
No, they discriminate.
They just do labor. They said that at the meeting.
That was the commission.
No, the commission has like the mayor said, a wide range of services that they provide. EEOC just does job discrimination.
So job discrimination could be sex, gender, race.
Oh yeah, but what about
income?
Other than job, your neighborhood or other kinds of involvement with other.
Oh right, yeah, it does. If you look at the EEOC website, right, it does have a labor and it also has private businesses.
So we'll have to get more answers.
Yeah. So if you go to a restaurant and get denied seating because of your race, gender, or sex, or you can file for the EEOC and they can investigate that. It's not just for employment, just because you're working here. A lot of companies have their own HR department. They'll outsource to the EEOC, but the EEOC will investigate labor, but also any private citizen that gets discriminated in a business.
Well, we have to find that out, because the presentation that was made to us said only labor discrimination.
Okay.
And then after we received the questions, there were about a dozen questions. There may be follow-up questions that we have based upon a need for more clarity. So if there are no further comments or questions, then we'll move on and look forward to future discussion. Thank you. Okay, next we have 9A. We have a Veterans Day proclamation sponsored by Councilmember Hampton. The proclamation honors our veterans and is accompanied by the flying of the Thank You Veterans flags at the city's public buildings. We are fortunate to have Gold Star mothers and one father with us this evening. Ms. Rose Duffman from the American Gold Star Mothers, and she is president of the Alexandria chapter. We have Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Brasino, formerly of Manassas Park, and we have Ms. Teresa Carlson of Haymarket. Welcome. We welcome your presence here this evening. Thank you for coming. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas the honorable service performed in the defense of these United States of America and our nation's cause in time of peace and especially in time of war is the highest form of citizenship. And whereas the greatest acknowledgement of our freedom is to honor our veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces who have sacrificed and in many cases paid the ultimate price for our freedom. And whereas the men and women who have served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Space Force, and National Guard of the United States of America have made substantial contribution toward preserving the freedom of our nation and our fellow Americans. And whereas in the words of President Eisenhower 68 years ago remain true today, let us solemnly remember the sacrifices of all those who fought so valiantly on the seas, in the air, and on foreign shores to preserve our heritage of freedom, and let us reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enduring peace so that their efforts shall not have been in vain. And whereas the city of Manassas Park is perpetually grateful for the contributions and sacrifices of our veterans and continually will remember and pay tribute to our military community, both active and inactive, for their dedication and commitment to the preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty established as an example for all the oppressed persons of the world. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the City of Manassas Park governing body will raise a flag publicly thanking veterans and call upon all Manassas Park residents to observe Veterans Day on Friday, November 11th, 2022, with actions and words of appreciation towards our city's veterans in honor of those who have served to preserve the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy. Do we have a motion to approve?
Moved. Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Madam Mayor? Excuse me, Madam Mayor? We also have some veterans we ask the veterans to stand, please. The veterans.
Can you see?
And this is the flag that we will fly.
Preston, help her with the flag if she needs help.
I'm short, sorry. But this is the flag that will fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hampton, and thank you for coming this evening. Now, you all are more than welcome to stay with us and enjoy the rest of the meeting, but believe me, we understand if you have other things to do.
Thank you,
Mayor, if I could just ask a question?
Yes. go ahead.
So it's my understanding that this is going to be flown pursuant to the policy of the governing body? If so, is it going to be just one location or multiple locations in the city and just for one day?
My understanding is that it's the 5 locations, is that correct?
Right, so there are all the public buildings that have flagpoles below the city flag, but is that the purpose, so we have all of those? Okay, so I think it should just be stated for the record that it is pursuant to our policy, because that wasn't clear.
Wasn't clear, yeah.
Right.
That's great that we're doing.
Is your statement sufficient for the record?
Maybe we just get a motion to I could clarify.
Okay, do you want to state the motion so that
Well,
it's absolutely correct?
Well, okay, so I guess, so the motion would be that pursuant to the city's flag flying policy, the flag that has been, I guess it's been donated to the city in honor of veterans will be flown on November 11th, right? Is that the day? Do you want?
Wednesday.
Right, but that's the day you want it on?
Well, it's up to us. Do we want it the whole entire month? We want it the whole entire month, or we just want Veterans Day?
That's what the policy says for a whole month.
Yeah, I think
Let's
we
do
should
the
have
whole
a
month.
We should give for the whole month.
Okay. So I think you need a new motion then.
Let's amend, can we amend the previous motion?
You can do a motion to reconsider. Any one of you can make a motion to reconsider, and then we can make a new motion.
Okay. Make a motion to reconsider
Policy says, yeah.
that to vote to have the flag flown the whole entire month of November.
Well, so the motion to reconsider is just to basically vote to get rid of the old motion.
I'm supposed to say.
Okay, so just motion to reconsider the vote just taken for the flag.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Okay, the new motion would be to pursuant to the city's flag flying policy, to fly the flag that's been donated to the city in honor of veterans for the entire month of November at all 5 locations of city public facilities.
The motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Dean, for,
Daryl's the one that pointed it out to me, so thank you, Daryl.
Carol?
Of course, we gotta do things right.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you much.
Daryl, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay, so far, thank you.
Okay, moving on to 9B, that would be Zen City Public Engagement Platform.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Okay. One second. Let me move this up. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the governing body. In front of you tonight is a pretty straightforward agenda item. We are requesting to leverage a platform, a public engagement platform called Zen City, in order to get feedback, particularly sentimental feedback from our residents. So what I'll do is I'll kind of provide some context to kind of where we are, how we got to this point, and then I am joined by Miss Elena Grissom. She's on the phone. She'll give you a short presentation that you see behind me, and then we'll open up for questions. So to start, as you know, the city does not really have a true public affairs office. We don't have a public information officer like most cities do. In fact, we do communication by committee. Police will do crisis messaging. The Parks and Rec will do sort of events marketing type messaging, and of course, the Office of the City Manager will do messaging that affect the city as a whole, so things like road closure, for example. We also do a very ad hoc surveying, but what we really lack is sort of a holistic way to kind of pull unbiased, multi-scope sentimental analysis from residents on a lot of critical initiatives. For example, we could have used this platform during COVID to kind of get a better read on how residents feel about COVID. So with that being said, we also have expanded a lot of service offerings to our residents. We have a housing coordinator, public health, mental health, as well as economic development, and we really re-emphasize code enforcement as well as parking enforcement. So a lot of initiatives, and we could, we could use a way to kind of get resident feedback to see how we're doing with those initiatives. So how does Zen City help to cover those gaps that I just mentioned? Well, they do this in two ways. In one way, what they do is they have a team of analysts to pull open source multimedia reporting as well as sentiment analysis, and they'll kind of crunch the numbers for us and provide reports at our request. So it could be a topical report or it could be a general sentimental report. And that helps us to kind of either helps LASO to kind of gear resources toward the areas of most concern for residents. The other way that Zen City helps us is they have a civic engagement platform where we could, share critical information on critical projects with our residents. Right now, I don't think we have sort of a one-stop shop for that kind of push information. And in addition to that, using that same civic engagement website, we can also poll residents, we can share multimedia progress on any projects, and it's a great way to get feedback on those as well. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Elena to kind of give you a better probably presentation of what this platform is capable of. Elena, are you on?
Sure, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hello, Manassas Park. It's great to be here today. Keith, thanks for the great introduction. Laszlo, thanks for the chance to be here. Council members and mayor, my name is Alina, and I'm excited to share a little bit about what we do here at Zen City. I think Keith will be my clicker, so let me know. Oh, got it. Okay, wonderful. So this conversation, we started reaching out and speaking with both Keith and Laszlo a couple months ago. We have been working really closely with your neighbors over in Manassas, city manager and communications team over there, and that led to this conversation with you guys. Zen City is a local government exclusive vendor. We only work with cities and counties across the U.S. In the great state of Virginia, we have, of course, most relevant to you guys, we've been working with Manassas for a while, and then several other partners across the state, anywhere from Williamsburg to Winchester, Isle of Wight County, Augusta County, Chesterfield County. So we'll be doing some neat work in the state. Next slide, please. I'd love to start with this quote, kind of echoes what Keith had shared earlier about where our heart is. This is a quote of one of our first partners who says, "The most important question I've been trying to solve is how do we, as a community, understand the quiet majority?" And Zen City was birthed to do that. We know with a lot of local governments, it's easy to hear from a small group of people, the active people within your community, and it may be more challenging to tap into those voices for whatever reason are considered the quiet majority. Either they don't know how to address the city, or they're just generally busy, don't have time to come to meetings. And so we seek to kind of step in the middle and be the all-end community engagement side of things to help you bring more voices into the conversation. Next slide, please. We know hearing from your entire community is challenging, as Keith mentioned, especially for cities that may be a little short-staffed on the community side of things. You know, it's hard to reach that quiet majority and requires significant effort and resources. And our goal, next slide, is to make that easier for you, to pull in more voices into the conversation so that when you guys as the governing board and staff are making decisions, you're hearing from as many voices as possible. And so we seek to help you lower the barriers of participation. How do we do that? Two sides of the same coin. First side is we look at, it's called Density Organic, and we have upon partnering with the city, we have a team that looks at all of the places, online and not online, where residents of Manassas Park are talking about the city, talking about city-related matters. Now, this can be a neighborhood Facebook page. It could be a Twitter handle. It can be local news sources, TV, radio, for those who don't have access to internet or social media. And we pull all of those conversations that are going on out online into a dashboard. It's all anonymized. We turn it into numbers. Next slide, please. So this is, for example, the dashboard of Manassas. What we're looking at here is for the past month, we were able to gather around 31,000 feedback points. These are all the conversations that are going on about Manassas, but not necessarily directed to them. So we want to bring those voices to the right decision makers. Once we do that, we start drilling things down into different reports. So next slide, please. Our reports can look like anything. You can request, if you know there's a council meeting coming up and you know you may only hear from 2 or 3 people on the particular topic, but you're curious about what the rest of the community thinks. You could ask us for a report and we start drilling down into the details. I have here a sample of a city that we work with in Texas that was doing a stormwater drainage utility fee. They knew there would be general opposition. They asked us to dig a little bit deeper. And we were able to find that the major concern is actually not the money, but a desire from residents to understand a little bit more about how that decision took place and a little bit more about budget transparency. So the city manager in this case was able to take this report, pause everything, and focus on that concern before moving on. Again, reports can be, like with Manassas, we've done reports on the data center that's coming to town, or their Von Meter home development. So whatever is the flavor of the cities, the day of the week, we're able to kind of provide more of a 360 view on that. And lastly, just of great importance to us is also tapping into communities and populations who don't have English as their primary language. So we do very much focus on also pooling channels where Spanish-speaking population is, and have a lot of translation capabilities so that those voices are also gathered in the report. That's what we do on the organic side of things. And as Keith mentioned, we also have a more direct civic engagement platform that is resident-facing. What that looks like is a way for you as a city to communicate to residents what major projects are going on. A project pages can be integrated into your main website, which is what we normally do. And I have a sample project page here on the next slide, which basically it could, it looks something like this. So if there's a development project that you guys have going on and you want to communicate that clearly to residents, there's place for just a general description of the project. On the right, you see a timeline of the different phases, so residents can have a visual understanding of what phase we're at. There's an option to sign up for notifications, so anytime there's a update on that particular project a resident is interested in, they'll receive an email update. And then also is polls and surveys that we do alongside you guys as the need arises. The next slide, it shows a little bit more about what that looks like. So another sample project comprehensive plan. As you can see, the timeline is a little bit more robust because that takes a long time. And kind of, and with this city that we worked with, we crafted a survey with them and did some outreach to the community asking what are the main priorities that they think the city should prioritize. So next slide, just a little bit more about the polls and surveys. Your customer success manager works with all of our other partners in Virginia, so we're able to share best practices, what other cities have done, what's worked, what's not worked. We have templates that we customize with you guys. We do the distribution, get the amount of responses needed, and then compile everything in a report. And so in terms of surveys, it could be anything from a quick 2 to 3 question poll, or, next slide, could be a more interactive survey where we have different options. Sample here is presenting a map of the city and asking residents to where they think a project should be prioritized, or just general, this is our budget, how do you think we should use it? So our surveys are interactive, they're fun, we do get a lot of responses, and it's something that we like to work with the city on doing a little bit more. So I think that's the end of my presentation. Just to recap, our heart is to help you engage with your community easier, to do the heavy lifting for you, to look at both where residents are talking by themselves and also to do a little bit more direct engagement. So we'd be looking forward to working with you guys as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Elena. And just to add to what Elena just mentioned, the slide probably don't do justice. The interactiveness of the civic engagement platform is very robust, very robust. You can put links, YouTube, really any media format. So it's a great tool. During the course of our conversation, I did pull in the rest of the team members, all of the communication folks that I mentioned earlier, and then everyone could think of a use case that they can use this for. So I think we're going to get a lot of benefit, a lot of value from this platform. With that being said, I guess I'll turn it over to any questions.
Thank you. Sounds like a great platform. Let's go into questions and comments. Councilmember Hampton.
Okay, so I've got a couple questions for yourself and
And if I could ask everyone to please speak directly into their microphones.
for yourself and I guess Elena. My first question is, I know that you mentioned pulling from social media. Does this also pull from non-social media?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Elena, and just backfill me if I need it. So it pulls any social media and non-social media, so print media, online newspaper. Really, they're going to cast a wide net. If we need to kind of step in and give some parameters, then they'll kind of stay a little bit more focused. But it's really all open source.
Okay. And my next question has to do with the creation of surveys, because that's a science in itself, right? Does the service that's being brought tonight, do they assist the city in creating surveys?
Absolutely. So we could.
And by creating not only just the actual physical creation, but helping develop the questions.
Absolutely. So so they have a team that's dedicated to us, and we kind of work with them. If we identify a topic, we'll start the conversation, and they'll help us structure the survey. If there are particular questions, for example, guidance from you all that need to be in that survey, then we'll add them. But we'll work together to create the survey, and then they'll have a team of analysts to analyze the result on the back end. Elena, do you have any more to add to that?
Yes, I'm sorry. It was a little hard to hear from the mic, but with the question,
will you guys assist us in creating the survey?
how do we craft our survey?
Would you guys assist us in creating the surveys?
And by assisting, meaning not just only the actual creation of it on the platform, but assisting in developing the questions, since surveys are a science in and of itself.
Yes. Oh, definitely, yes. So we have a team of, led by a woman who has gotten her PhD in survey science. So we do have templates that have worked in the past that we do sit with you guys, write the questions, review the questions, make sure from the bias perspective, kind of like not avoiding leading questions, and just really making sure that it's clean and the results can be relied upon.
And my last question is, can you give us an example of how we would use this, a situation that we would use this for?
Yeah, so for example, one of the major ongoing effort right now is community maintenance. And so we can kind of create a page or project for that particular focus or topic and get resident feedback on how we're doing, what sections of the city we need more assistance on or more focus on, and we can gather those input through the civic engagement side.
Also, from governing body perspective, when we're ready to re-engage on our priorities, when we do the strategic planning, putting it out there first for residents, what are your priorities, and getting input from them, kind of like what we did at the town halls for the downtown development, or if we're doing any future economic development projects, doing the town halls, and then just passively hearing kind of what our residents are talking about specifically to that project, or even proactively polling them as well. So I think it's going to be some good use from a project-by-project perspective, and also from understanding from a strategic planning perspective as well what your residents' priorities are.
Vice Mayor Banks?
How will the surveys be conducted? Is it going to be over the phone or online?
So definitely online, primarily through the project page, or we can send them out via any distro that we may have. Do you guys do phone survey, Elena?
We do if needed. Yeah, specifically if there's a need for a statistically significant survey, we do want to make sure that's representative correctly. So we do have phone services if needed. But in terms of the surveys presented with the civic engagement report, it's mainly distributed online.
So you have this survey, right, and you're got it online. How are you going to draw people to it? Are we going to have variable message signs saying, go online to our survey? I mean, how are we going to get people's attention?
So I think during the initial rollout of this platform, we'll have to kind of market it to draw people's attention to it, and then from there, sort of build momentum, because the initial survey, I think, is going to be lackluster until we get the word out that we have this new engagement platform designed to engage residents.
And my last thing I want to mention, I don't, there's needs and wants, right? We do this personally in our lives. I don't think this is a need. I mean, for certain things like our city's priorities and big things, yes, but we have town halls. I think this is more of a want. And we just had Mr. Christian, Mr. Gardner calls me all the time. And Martha, the citizens come to us as their elected representatives and tell us their concerns or their viewpoints on stuff. And I just don't think this is a need. And I don't know how, to my last question, how we're going to draw their attention. And if we do, it's only going to be those citizens who are online. It's not going to be the majority of our citizens who work every day and take care of their family when they get home and don't have time to go online and do a survey. So that's my concern. We're only going to just a few people, and it's just, I think it's going to be it's more of a want than a need. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Surveys are always self-selecting. If you see a survey and you want to take it, then you take it. There's also the other side, the sentimental analysis, where they'll pull all these open source data sources that we just don't have the ability to do. So that's supplement the survey size well.
Open source like Facebook? I mean, we've got our two forums, we all check it. I mean, and it's quite interesting, or sometimes it makes you feel bad, depending on the post. But, I mean, those are only two. I mean, we don't have that many open sources or discussions going on in our community online.
Yeah, and it's not really Manassas Park accounts. It's really just broad overall.
Yeah, and Mr. Vice Mayor, if I can just add, because this is why I think we're setting up this price structure the way it is with that significant year one discount, because I want to test your theory. if that's the only place where we're having engagement. And what else is going on Twitter, what's going on in other places that aren't forums necessarily, and what the community's talking about. I'm more interested from it from the passive perspective, but it's a very low price for year one to test it out and to see if they can actually deliver or not. And if we can glean some insight, I think it's worth a shot. I hear a lot, and later tonight, I'm going to be, during my manager report, talking about communications and engagement with residents as it comes to trash issues, right? You'll hear about that later tonight. So I think the reason why we brought this forward is because they're giving us a significant discount to prove that there's going to be value from this as well.
Discount, they should give us a freebie. I mean, I think, and that's what apps do, right? So my last point is, I think if the people that we do get, our participants in our surveys, are going to be kind of like those who respond online. You get those keyboard warriors, those trolls who complain or are negative. We may get just even that selective few who are just negative, and that's not the majority of our residents and our citizens that we know how they feel and what they think because they talk to us and we know them. So that's what I'm worried about too, is that we're going to only get just a certain amount of our population, and those who are keyboard warriors are negative in the first place.
That's a good point, Vice Mayor Banks. And since we're talking about surveys, I guess I have what you could call a point of curiosity, depending upon, as you mentioned, participation. There's the possibility that the opinion results can swing vastly one way or the other, depending upon the level of participation. For example, recently we had 2 surveys regarding removal of the cul-de-sac islands. Now, the first survey went to 17 residents and there were 5 no answers. Second survey went to 12 residents and there were 7 no answers. So if the no answers would have responded, that would have really tilted the results one way or the other. So I guess my question is, when the results are compiled, will consideration be given to the size, the number of participants?
Yeah, so, like Elena said, they do have a trained team of data scientists looking at the survey result. So it's not just a matter of compiling, aggregating, and not vetting the information. And once that team has analyzed the result, it will be provided to the city manager, and he'll take that into consideration of his whole strategy. So it's just not a, point-to-point report to action. There's a lot of vetting and analysis that has to go through.
What types of vetting take place?
Elena, can you assist with that question?
Yes, what kind of vetting in terms of,
The result from the survey?
yeah, we definitely, so we make sure, no one stops the ballot, answers twice. I think our generally have really good feedback when it comes to our surveys because we put so much thought into them. So in terms of the question was asked earlier, just how to make sure we get as many responses as possible. So, for cities, we're not really talking about in the tens, but like hundreds of responses if we're able to. And so we know the best way to target people because of our kind of the first side of things. So we're able to know, like, okay, where are people talking about this topic? And that's where we hope to draw the links. And so we know a big part of surveys is if there's not enough responses, it can be maybe do more harm than good. So we really do try to get as many people as possible. But I also did want to respond to that earlier comment, which was a good concern about a worry that this will just get responses from negative, the same negative voices. And that is a very reason why we exist, in order to prevent that from happening. So we know that you guys do hear from a small group of people, either people who love you a lot or don't like you a lot, and it's hard to know kind of to get that middle ground engaged, and that's where we seek to do. So when it comes to our passive listening that Laszlo mentioned, we don't only look at the city Facebook page because that generally does have similar names surfacing, but try to leave no stone unturned in terms of where are the other people talking about the city? Where are all of the other, where's all the feedback that's out there there that is maybe not getting to your ears. So, as I mentioned, in Manassas for the past month, those 30,000 interaction points likely drown out the same couple people that you hear from all the time. And it's still up to you to decide what to do with that. But what we seek to do is just provide more data points and try to bring in more voices into the conversation.
And I'd like to just add too, whenever we present survey results, that you remember the town hall, I would always say, out of X amount of people who attended the town hall, because that's a description of the participants of that survey. I never said that that's the entire city sentiment, so that's how we're always going to couch it. But again, I just want to go back. I think the passive information the AI data collection may be the most useful part of this, but also too, like I remember the brand discussion when we said, well, what are our residents, what are their opinions, right? Like how do we get there right now, right? In a more vetted way. We don't really have those capabilities of doing that unless you want to just rely purely on people who are emailing you. That's a way to do it. I think this is just a next level up. That's our perspective.
I just wanted us to acknowledge the limitations of the platform. Okay, thank you. Any other comment? Yes, ma'am.
Will there be a way to see how many different people used this at the end of the year?
That's a back-end question. Elena, can you view that?
Yes, are you talking about the engagement platform?
Yeah, so the surveys and also like how many different places you found the passive information. Like after a year, can we get a recap about how many people actually reached out and then where exactly you found information? Or how many different sources?
Yes, and it doesn't necessarily be at the end of the year. It's hopefully ongoing. So when residents sign up for notifications, there's a list of kind of, how many residents are interested in each project. But also when we send out surveys, there are generally some demographic questions that we use to kind of highlight when we do the reporting, make it a little bit more nuanced, when it comes to, demographics like income or ethnicity or language or age even. So when it comes to the engagement side, there are ways that we're able to figure out who's engaging with the city. And then when it comes to the passive side of things, that first section, that's a little bit more difficult to do because we don't have the ability to ask demographic questions. So we do have numbers there. We have sentiment as well. People are talking about a topic, is it negative, is it neutral, and why? So I hope that helps answer the question. But yes, as much as possible, we want to try to drill down into the nuances of the type of
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Moore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just had one quick question about statistic significance. So in the surveys, will you be able to determine whether the question was statistically significant in its response?
question. On the surveys that I presented today, we do not, but we do have additional capabilities if there's a need for statistically significant surveys, and we do those as well.
Yeah.
Same one with Manassas, I believe, but that would be in addition to what I presented today.
And most surveys are not, because you can't do regression analysis unless you control for all the variables, and that's just very difficult to do unless you're going to have a full scientific study. So I don't think we're going to get ever to statistical significance with just surveying. You would actually need a scientific team to set up the parameters and to be able to do some regression analysis based off of the engagement.
Sometimes it has to do with sample size, that we're surveying enough people to make it significant.
Yeah, the sample size is something, whether the sample size is suitable for being able to glean.
Yes.
It just depends what you mean by statistically significant. If you want, there's different ways of saying it, but from a polling standpoint, you're absolutely right, sample size is key. For proving causation versus correlation, I guess is where I'm going. Absolutely. It would take some additional steps, if that makes sense. Yeah, okay.
Related to what Councilmember Moore said, are there demographic considerations? Or did they have the capability to do that?
That's what she just mentioned. I think for the surveys, yes, but not for the passive polling. And correct me if I'm wrong, Elena, but I believe that's what I heard.
Yeah, passive is anonymized, but with the survey, we are able to ask demographic questions, and we do often do that.
Councilmember Javed?
Yeah. Hey, good evening. So does your company do more than just surveys? I understand there's a crisis management outreach too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, so we do have, our company as a whole. Is the question the company as a whole or what I presented today?
Company as a whole, because I mean, is this discussion only for the surveys? Is that what we're doing, or are we buying the whole platform?
So you getting access to the passive platform and the surveys. As an entire company, we also work with police departments, but that wasn't a part of a conversation with Manassas Park.
Sure.
But in terms of different topics that we look at, we do very much sometimes do surveys on public perception of safety and trust within the community. And then in terms of like crisis management, this is definitely comes in handy, unfortunately, but a lot of cities we work with, if there's in times of crisis where there's a lot of conversations going on and it may be really hard to filter and clear the noise, the passive, because we're able to gather all of those conversations and kind of make sense of it, provide numbers. We have had, on unfortunate times of crisis, this has been proven to be very helpful in clearing through the noise, knowing what to prioritize, where the need is, and what the main concern is amongst residents.
Okay. So my question, my second question comes down to engagement. Apologize if you answered this before, but as I think the other council members were mentioned, is how are you guys going to get more engaged residents to actually fill out these surveys?
Yep. So once we develop a survey question with you guys, it is on us to distribute it or redistribute it alongside the city. And of course, you want to make it as visible as possible. So we usually have a link that we drop in different locations. It could be, if it's a Facebook page that is very passionate about that topic, we drop the link there. Of course, the city page, Facebook page, we drop a link as well. On the project side of things, any resident that has signed up for notifications will get a direct email with the survey link as well. We help cities sometimes on their utility bills that they send out to residents include a QR code that residents can use to fill out the survey. So there are different creative ways. Every city is very unique, as you guys probably know. There's just different distribution methods that with different best practices that we've developed over time.
Thank you. And then my last question goes to your AI software. So, I mean, as I think Keith mentioned here, is that you'll cast a broad net on a lot of different media, social media out there, and anything that triggers a word, say Manassas Park, you gather that information into a data point and then deliver that to us how?
So that, what you referenced is called keyword search, which we actually do not do. We started like that, and we realized that just caused a lot of irrelevant conversations. So instead of looking at anywhere Manassas Park is mentioned, a foreseeable problem there is it may draw in conversations that are just on the city of Manassas, and that could just get all jumbled. So we stray away from keyword searches, and what we do instead is make sure that all of the channels we're feeding into the dashboard are channels that are by your residents. And so that's part of what the AI does, kind of filters out that. And then the second part it does is something called sentiment analysis. So once we do get the feedback, the AI is able to tell what is negative, what is neutral, and what is positive. And that just provides more of allows us to actually use the data to create reports and to create meaningful reports as well, as opposed to here's what people are talking about. Here's what people are talking about. There's been a negative spike overnight in conversations about a development project. We're able to know where did that come from and why? Or, you know, you may have 5 people coming to council that are negative about your comprehensive plan or budget, let's say, and we could generate a report showing, actually, here are 5,000 positive feedback points that you may not hear from. So that's just the second layer of AI is the sentiment part.
Got it. Thank you so much. Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Is there a way that we can use it as a user to see how it feels for someone that's, you know, going to be using it?
Yeah, so, you know, once Atlanta or the city, you know, creates a survey, we could let you guys know and sign up as a resident and provide that, and we'll provide the back-end results so you can try to see the full workflow of how it works.
Yeah, I would like kind of to see how it feels as a user versus that's just down the back end.
I think you're asking for a demonstration.
Yes.
Yeah, I think to piggyback on Councilmember Amaya, I think we would benefit from an actual demonstration instead of static pictures.
Yeah, I think so. Because I'm still not understanding how residents are going to be going into this platform. I think you asked how the surveys are going to get to the residents, and I heard phone maybe, I heard mailers maybe, and I heard obviously social media and email, but some of our residents don't have, you know, they're not tech savvy, so how else are we going to get to these other residents?
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of marketing effort on our part.
Well, hold on, though. It's just because there's a lot of questions that you're asking there, because let's break this down. So step one, you want to see not the passive part, because there's no user for the passive part. You're a user when you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. You're a user there, and the AI is pulling from that. So there is no user experience from that standpoint, but from the survey standpoint, you want to see what does a survey look like that a resident would be filling out. Let's say for Manassas is used this for a survey. You want to see an example of what that looked like for a resident. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but you kind of answered the question, because I thought it was kind of, because she's mentioned a link, so I thought it was something that we signed up for, or was an app.
No,
or something.
there's two components. So there's the survey component, which, yeah, we can see if maybe they can share what that looks like from Manassas' experience, but the passive part, there is no users. There's no system you're going in. You're doing that on a day-to-day basis when you're using this thing.
Collecting data.
Exactly, it's just collecting data. Uh-huh.
But I think we were asking for a demonstration. Like, if you can, that's why I said freemium, just do a survey and let us see it.
So demonstration of you want us to conduct a survey through their platform.
A real one for us, a real Manassas Park issue. Let's see it.
Okay.
And for me, the demonstration also would be the passive part, because I do have a little bit of background in this. I would like to see some of the reports of the passive. In addition, have you all spoken to the public affairs folks at Manassas City or the other jurisdictions?
Yeah, that was on the agenda memo that we did engage with them, and Manassas had very positive feedback about this as
Just
well.
Manassas, did you contact others?
So we just contacted Manassas, yeah.
And
So
I did read it.
for the passive component, though, you want to see the dashboard, like more examples of dashboards? Okay.
Real time,
Okay, all right.
not static.
Can you sandbox it, Elena?
Reports.
Right now? Yeah, I could share my screen. Was that the question? I'm so sorry, hard to hear.
Yeah, the question is if you could get us a live demonstration of the passive and active side. Essentially create a sandbox so we can see what it looks like and how it works.
Yes, I am happy to share my screen.
Pick one of the many issues we have, from parking to whatever.
Trash.
Oh, you can pick whatever issue you want. We have a list of issues, like parking, trash, water bill.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm figuring this out. Another option can be to record a video sharing it. I'm having trouble sharing my screen.
I like the survey on the views of Preston Banks.
I mean,
but
yeah, I think we could wait.
Yeah.
You know,
You're leaving, so you want to leave with a good sense.
we could wait for a
or
demonstration.
not.
We could.
I'm sorry, Laszlo, what did you say? I don't
Yeah.
think your microphone's working.
My apologies. It is working, I forgot to hit the button. I said if we can table this for the next meeting, so we have time to prepare that, so we're not, because we have a pretty lengthy agenda tonight.
That works for me.
Thank you. Dean, what is the process for tabling? It's deferred to a future meeting, and we need to specify the date? Is your microphone on?
No, it's not. So were you planning on taking action tonight on this?
We're deferring it.
You're deferring, yeah, so do you have a specific date you're going to defer it to?
When will we have the?
I mean, it's not critical because this isn't a public hearing
Oh,
that
okay.
requires specific notice, so
We don't need to be
you can just
specific.
table this and bring it back when it's ready.
As unfinished business.
Okay.
Would that be for the 13th?
It could be.
City manager determine when?
Yeah, let me work on getting, when we feel right to do the demonstration, and we'll bring it back to you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That works.
Everybody's okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Do we have to take a vote, Dean, to table?
No, you don't. It's just
Thank you.
not taking action on it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next, moving on to 9C, which is Barry Dunn, ERP. Chris, welcome, Chris.
You guys want to conduct a survey? No, because no one wants to do a survey.
Who's going to write the question?
That's a science in itself.
Right.
It is.
You're fine, Chris.
The animal crackers, I can share my animal crackers. A whole brand new box. It's a whole brand new box.
Is this the first time you see it?
Right.
We come back to this?
Meeting's ready. Oh, okay. Oh, this is yours up there, I see.
Of note, we can't control the volume in here yet. That system's not in place, so we're stuck with the volume we have tonight. So in the future, hopefully, we'll be able to raise the volume for those who are having difficulty hearing. Okay.
So does that mean the volume, that these will feed into the room, the entire room? What does that mean?
So whatever you're hearing right now can get louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will it, but is it limited to this, or is it, does it go into the entire room? I mean, is it?
I can't speak for the.
True public.
Yeah, so for the people sitting out there, they'll be able to hear better.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So it does go into the room. The volume is projected into the room.
Yeah, there's volume right now, it's just very low.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Leaving at the wrong time, I want my voice to be Great.
Delayed it on
Mine
purpose.
like.
Delayed it on purpose, Preston.
Thanks.
Turn it on.
It's on. There we go. All right. I'll try to use my big boy voice here. All right. Good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body. My name is Christopher Hines. I'm the Assistant City Manager for Administration, and I'm here to talk about the agenda item pertaining to our ERP consulting scope of work change, and just go through some quick context of where we're at to date with the overall ERP RFP consulting process. This was part of the initiative that was approved last year, and we're kind of in the cycle where we are starting to do evaluations and scoring for certain sections of the original RFP, but just through some, let's call it, interruption in their Plan A, we're having to flex to Plan B. So that's kind of what we'll talk about tonight for Plan B. So just to kind of bring everybody back to where we're at to date, August 3rd of 2021, that's when we decided to go with Barry Dunn. They are ERP consultant, local government kind of tax consultant that also provides tech consulting services. That was as a result of an RFP process in and of itself, so they were scored and found to be the best candidate to help out the city. And they were going to basically define a comprehensive development for a single RFP that had all elements provided that was based off of almost like an entire review of the city's software footprint regarding ERP, business process reviews, technical requirements gathering, a lot of kind of jurisdictional cross-reference checks, you name it, across the board. And we've been executing that plan over the last, I would say we started services roughly around last September, November timeframe. We've been doing that ever since, pretty methodically, month to month. That was up to $100,000, not to exceed $110,000, but that $10,000 buffer was for estimated travel costs, of which we've been doing the entire thing remote, so we haven't had to use that. So the plan was to kind of just execute the $100,000. To date, because we're at the very latter stage of that original RFP consulting process, we're at $82,800 spent to date over the last 10 months on that approved project. And this is all utilizing ARPA funding from an ARPA initiative that was a part of that budget. So on March 30th, we sent out for bid our comprehensive RFP. The window was from the 30th to the 15th. We do, and this is executed as a service provided by the vendor, this is the consultant, a pre-proposal conference. So we had vendor attendance. There was roughly around 10. Most of them were kind of what you would think of the all-inclusive software platforms, some individual standalone type products. And usually this is giving you a sense of who's interested and who's going to actually submit a possible response to your RFP, but it's not a guarantee. They're just asking questions and just kind of getting a sense about the project. It's usually done within the first 2 weeks of when you submit the bid. You get some gathering feedback, and then you usually, based off of that, submit like an FAQ type addenda to the actual RFP, just as like these are FAQs that vendors are asking because you have to post it along with the originally posted bid. After that, we got to the April 12th, or excuse me, the May 15th deadline, and all that entailed was one vendor response. That was Tyler Munis as the sole response for the entire package of modules. We did get one standalone response that included just the tax component, so that means that we got 2 tax responses, if you think about it, one of them all vendor response. And so my feedback to Barry Dunn was that's not sufficient enough for the city to make a decision. We need to figure out a flexible plan to kind of continue forward, doing what we need to do kind of what we talked about, good process, good due diligence, find the right systems, but also how do we increase response rate, how do we increase activity on this, and we actually learned a lot roughly around the June, July timeframe of what we can do to better improve response rates. So with that, this was kind of the after-action report, kind of the bullet points and what we learned. Number one overall, and this is kind of what we knew going into it, this is a niche industry. This isn't something to where there are a wholesale level of vendors that do local government, financial, HR, tax, utility billing functionalities that you can leverage as a city, especially ones to include all of those components in one centralized system. It's a very niche group of providers in and of itself. There are more when you kind of think of it on an à la carte basis. So if I'm only going to get a utility system, I'm only going to get a tax system, I'm only going to go out and get an HR system. But when you compile that all together, that list of vendors kind of dwindles down pretty significantly. Another one is we are a small city. So in terms of just our competitiveness as a potential buyer, you think about it from a company standpoint, it's a return on investment, dedicating resources and dollars to develop a response, put yourself up for a kind of proposal to a vendor, and what you can get out of it. As a small city, most vendors contract with cities based off of population demographic size, of which we're always going to be at a net, I would say, less competitive standpoint because we are a smaller city, one of the smallest cities in Virginia and nationwide as well. Another one was just the Great Resignation, if you've been familiar with just the impact overall, but also specifically within the tech space. There's been a significant amount since COVID, during the pandemic, and then continuing on where software companies, at least from my understanding, from what my engagement has been with these vendors, just a loss in capacity. And that kind of feeds into bullet point number 2. When you have less people, you need to be able to execute the things that you think you can get the biggest return on. And so this was all, you can think about it, adding up to the confluence of events of why we only got one response. And then the last one was the Tyler bias. They are far and away the #1 contracted vendor across the Commonwealth, and it's probably not even close. But there are other great solutions. It's just that market share in Virginia has been exclusive to Tyler to date. And to confirm that, I went along with our finance director to the GFOA conference, met with every single vendor that provides these services, and it was one after another talking and face-to-face with every single vendor and saying, yeah, that's kind of what we had assumed based off of that. That's something that we could have no real understanding of until we actually got through the end point of the process. So all of that being combined, talking with Barry Dunn, it made sense to say, well, we have to continue executing. And this is a good plan overall because the process has been really great to date, and we have a really good best foot forward for the city with buy-in from not just our administrative staff, but Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer staffs as well. And so everyone's still really bought in to continuing on. We just needed to figure out how to increase response rates. So it was going to be an itemized approach. So we're going to pull out UB, and when I say UB, I mean utility billing. That was going to be one where there are more solutions for utility billing type services because it's something that not necessarily specific just to local governments. You have utility authorities, you have other different aspects about utility billing on the private sector, so there's just more solutions that are out there. And then the same thing with HR and financials. There's more standalone HR solutions because that's something that, yes, there are specifics for local government, but there's also ones that are developed for private sector type use that can also be pulled over into public sector. I know I'm saying that out loud, and Pon's probably listening and cringing right now, but I believe that is the case. And then as well as financials, that's one where, there's what we've seen in the competitive local government space, those are the ones that really facilitate what we're trying to do. And then understanding that in a modern world, with the configuration capability when we're attaching all of these systems together, I know the fear is if we go with different point solutions that they won't talk to each other, but that's more of a past assumption based off of limitations, and this is even back to as early as 2015, that wasn't the case, and people would advise against that. In today's kind of exponential growth of tech capacity, they call them API kind of integration, so the ability to connect systems and actually have, I would say, kind of seamless transfer of information from system to system to system that is exponentially improved. So it's still a risk, it's just not much of a risk as it formerly was. So all this kind of compiled together, Barry Dunn, they offer basically the consulting fees based off of what they're doing, not by the hour. So all of their, we're going to facilitate this process to a percentage completion point of 100% at a base price fee cost of this. So we're basically trying to get an expansion of the scope of work to include utility billing, 2 different phases, and then the HR financials, 2 different phases. And I'll talk about those here in a second. Before that, though, I just wanted to kind of give the itemized work to date. All of the elements on the top, this has all been completed, and that's, like I said, dating back to last fall. And then right now, we still, like I said, we spent this to date, which is the 82 And then this is actually the encumbered one because this is the endpoint for the tax process. So as we itemize out, tax will be complete, and that's kind of what they had scoped for the whole book of work from the original scope of work. And then we're going to add the 2 additional phases, one specific to UB, which will essentially just be repeating these 2, and then one specific for the HR and financials, which will be executing these 2. And like I said, they're base rates. So this fee is standard. I'm sorry, let me look at those are prorated there. These are standard, as you can see. So just for that service alone, they will always have a base rate of that, and that's how they operate. Normally in the consulting space, it's by hour based off of the person that you have working on the project. Barry Dunn, this is their fee structure. So that's where I'll leave it at. I do believe we already had the pre-proposal conference for the utility billing, so we're about 2 weeks into soliciting that out for bid. And even just from a utility company, nothing else, we had 15+ utility billing specific responses. And then after the utility billing vendor pre-proposal conference, I at least had 4 more companies reach out individually that couldn't attend, but they wanted to get some more information. So I am confident that this item-by-item ad hoc approach is going to facilitate more responses, just because, one, we've essentially addressed every single one of these that we can control. The biggest one would be alleviating this one, letting vendors know that we're not in this just to get the system that we wanted before we even put it out for bid. And 2, while we do have some of these constraints, the wave of, I guess, I probably can think about it in hindsight, the wave of everybody utilizing their CARES Act and ARPA funding has kind of subsided a little bit, and we're past that kind of crest of activity. So we're now in kind of like a trough standpoint. So we were probably early to the point to our own detriment of putting this all out there. Granted, I still feel like we needed to because I wanted to be aggressive. Now that we're on this ad point, this is the, I guess, the cost of continuing this process with that acknowledgement there. So I'll leave everything out for question. If you have anything, please let me know.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Hampton.
So it may be too early, but we need like some sort of middleware so they all kind of talk together. Is that a concern?
What do you mean middleware? Just to make sure I'm speaking the same language here.
I'm just thinking of something I worked on years ago where there was in-house solution and then there was an off-the-shelf solution, and they had to create something in between so the two could talk.
Yeah, so there are multiple different connection points. The one that is real-time and that you want to always get to is a true API. That's actually even better with the modern solutions that are more cloud-based. That connectivity rate, that kind of connective tissue between platforms with what we're getting responses to, even the Tyler product. We even talked to a municipality today, the city of Stanton, about their tax software system. They've been on Tyler from a tax perspective since 2003, but they're still on a hosted on-premise, like an on-premise solution of Tyler. We got the bid for a complete cloud solution. So we are, whatever we look for, part of the RFP we're looking for is cloud, cloud, cloud. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue for us. I mean, it'll take some real understanding of how things, but at least we'll know that once we set it up, those processes will just work. It won't be dependent upon making sure that that connection is always up and running, or if that network server goes down, we're going to lose that connectivity and stuff. So from a risk perspective and a resiliency perspective, that's something that we're definitely thinking about.
Okay, thank you.
A follow-up? Comments or questions? Yes.
Thank you, Chris, for the presentation. I have a couple questions. To date, we've spent about $80,000 of the $110,000 that we budgeted. As you pointed out, $10,000 of it is for travel, and there's no travel going on. So you look at the $100,000, we've spent $82,000 of that.
I just want to say, correction point, 82 is what we've actually spent, but we have kind of, if you think about it, the rest of the remaining tax
Yes.
process as well. So the real number is this, 97. That's kind of what would be a fully processed tax consulting for tax system.
But I don't understand that we've hired this consultant, we paid them this $82,000, very done. Why they didn't tell us? They knew before writing the RFP that it was a niche industry. They work in this industry. They know the players. So this should have been apparent to them. They know that Manassas Park is a small city of 16,000, 70,000 people. That shouldn't have been a surprise to no one. They know that the Great Resignation started almost a year ago, and that tech industries are having a hard time filling vacancies. They know that Tyler is the big boy on the block. That wasn't a surprise to anyone. I'm a little frustrated that we're being asked to spend another $45,000 on a RFP that this company should have known this information prior, and that we let out a RFP contract where we only got one result. I know we had the 10 people come to the pre-conference, but at the end of the day, we only had one. And the reason being is because we were in a hurry. You know, why didn't our consultant for $82,000 tell us that we need to wait? And if they told us, why didn't we heed that advice? I'm concerned that we're spending another $45,000 over something that we should have been done or taken care of at the very beginning. And my last question, and you could answer that, Tyler, they bid on our contract. They're the big boys on the block. They do everything. They do all the components, the pieces that we want them to do. Why aren't we considering them? If most of the cities in Northern Virginia use their system, it would seem to me that they're the ones to use. If we have a problem, we can call them because they're in so many other cities in Northern Virginia. As opposed to a consulting company or a software company that's not even in Virginia, but has other places throughout the country. And then we're having problems getting them coming to maintain and service our systems. Why not Tyler? Is my second question.
Okay.
First is, why didn't Dunn give us the kind of consulting services that we paid them $82,000 for?
I just want to address that. Consulting in the sense that they review our processes, that they understand what we're asking for, that they log and basically build the structure for the ask, which is the requirements capture, and then they facilitate, from their standpoint, the outreach to vendors to get them to the table and do this. But in terms of market analysis and forecasting of who is and who is not doing anything, that is on the private sector side. So that is not their reach, and it was never part of the scope within the actual line item amount of services. A lot of this isn't predicated upon understanding what vendors may or may not do. So I just want to make sure that that is level set. That wasn't an expected outcome during this, was how fast we should go or what we should be doing in terms of anticipated understanding. So I just want
the experts in the industry.
I believe they are from a technical system standpoint, but from forecasting business activity, no, that's not what they were.
Doing that part of it.
Nobody, to my knowledge, is actually able to forecast how a business will respond to an RFP.
Well, that's true as far as businesses, but as far as these things that we're saying, the niche industry, the small city constraints, the Great Depression, Great Resignation, those were all known by.
Well, I will say the same thing, but from a niche industry standpoint, when we did the pre-proposal conference, there was at least 8 different vendors. There was about 8 different. 8 would be a fantastic response. We just got 1. If we had gotten 3 responses, I would have been comfortable. We just got 1, and that's the issue. It's just the 1. But there's no way that we could have forecast based off of everything else, because from my own understanding in the private sector, when I was thinking, it's acquisitions is acquisitions. When you're in a company, you're all about pushing sales, and so you can never really understand when a company will pull back on how much they're going to be aggressive in attacking bids. That's just the way the industry, from my understanding, works. So there's no really way to understand of when a company will be less aggressive to get all the business they possibly can versus not going after certain projects because you might not have the back-end capacity.
So whose decision was it to do a one RFP, a one comprehensive RFP, as opposed to breaking it up like we're now proposing to do?
Well, if we had,
component parts.
just to make sure
It
that's
was my
understood.
decision, just
Yeah.
to let you know.
Yeah.
It was something that I've been briefing since I've joined here in 2017, that we had a failed process in 2015 for evaluating the market, for doing what Chris is talking about. Everything that we paid for there was not a market analysis of who was going to, who was actually going to submit an RFP. It was more the technical requirements of what we needed as a city, and to help us market that and market ourselves and to do the RFP process. But the plan from 2017 on was that we were eventually going to market to replace Keystone piece for piece. Keystone provided those 4 services that Chris delineated: the taxes, the utility billing, and the HR and financial. So the goal was to replace them. So the strategy was always to try to replace them with a company that could do these things. I hear you 100% with Tyler, and that's where you talked to me back in 2017, I said, well, just go to Tyler. But we've had experiences with Tyler. Now, I'm not going to, I don't want, my goal here is not to badmouth Tyler, and I think we should have probably a conversation offline, but there's a lot of challenges when you have such large market presence and you don't have the staffing to keep up with the service of that. So I think it's probably best we talk offline about that. We are evaluating Tyler. It's not that we're not doing that. Chris had a demo today from Tyler, or not Tyler today, but talking to another city about their experience with Tyler as well. So we wanted to be comprehensive, but we understand your frustrations 100% about what we've spent to date. But again, to Chris's point, what we spent to date, we would have spent anyways on getting the requirements. It's the how we decided, you're absolutely right, how we decided to tackle the RFP. That was my decision, and you can certainly blame me for that, for not better understanding maybe the market, that we would have had better responses for a niche approach versus a comprehensive approach. But my mindset since 2017 is always we were going to take a comprehensive approach for replacing the system like for like with those four elements, and that was a miscalculation on my part.
I just so I can add, I'm sorry, just one more thing to that. The RFP did delineate that people had the ability to respond to different sections, so we didn't say they had to do all of it. So that was explicit to the RFP. That was also outlined during the vendor proposal conference that we had with all the vendors, so they understood the assignment. It was only the after the fact that we saw that they didn't want to based off of all those learnings. And then also, just for one more caveat, if we had gotten a proposal to do 3 RFPs individually, 145 would have been the cost. So just to understand, because they would have had to do 3 separate RFP processings as well, not just one all under inclusive in one. They would have itemized out the process for each individual system. So the number is the number regardless.
My point is getting lost in that this consultant that we paid $82,000 for should have told us, Manassas Park, don't do one large RFP, break it up into segments. Then we wouldn't have paid the $145,000 initially.
I just want to make sure that that's, when we issued the RFP just to find a consultant and then we evaluated responses, the way that we issued it out, I understand what you're saying, but it still would have been the same cost for services if we had done it from 3 separate RFPs. Because that's what they would have said. They would have said, well, you can do it in 3 separate, and oh, by the way, this is what we charge to do 3 separate RFPs for you.
We wouldn't have wasted 4 months. We no longer, we would have to push back the implementation of our ERP process.
As someone who is intimately familiar with our software onboarding process, I don't think we're wasting time at all. I mean, we're still on schedule. This was an FY23 initiative, and we're still on mark to hit that if we continue to do the kind of acquisition phase here. But we are at the end phase of tax. So once we select that system going forward, we should be able to procure that system, at least from a governing body approval standpoint, in the next coming 6 weeks, utility billing by January and February, and then shortly, we're planning, if this is pending approval, to submit the HR financials RFP within the next couple of coming weeks as well. So all of this is going to be incremental over the next, I think, to make sure that we have an identified system with an onboarding schedule that starts in FY23 as anticipated, and that is still the plan.
And then the final piece, Mr. City Manager, I appreciate the presentation. It's my understanding that the $45,000 additional money, we haven't found that money. It's going to have to be put in the amendment process to find the additional $45,000.
Well, I believe we're using ARPA funding, so we have a large pot of ERP budget. We don't know what the final cost is going to be of the ERP. Right now, it's siloed, so we're utilizing the ERP consulting section of that full budget, but in reality, I think we want to say we had just under, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, $3 million?
Well, that's the other thing too, and I just want to, this is an additional 45 to make sure we're doing it correct. These systems cost north of $1 million to $2 million, so it's making sure that you're doing it correctly to save money down the line by just making sure that you're doing the right decision. And I just want to make sure it's like, in the scale of it, small investment, big return, because you are better aligned with better technology that fits your needs.
And let me clarify how much we have from ARPA, but our intent is to keep tapping into ARPA for this. Yeah. Give me a sec here.
Maybe more.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so from FY22, all the way out to 25, we have a total of about $1.664 million directly from ARPA for this effort. So there was always an intent that we were going to use city funding as well. So it's coming out of that $1.64 million pot of funds from ARPA. So but to Chris's point, do this properly, we hopefully save money down the road, but you're absolutely right, we're eventually going to pay for this if we don't. But it'd come from the city side, not from ARPA. But right now, the goal is to keep using ARPA money for this service. But no, you're absolutely right. This may, on the back end, from a total ERP perspective, if the goal was we spend $2 to $3 million on this effort, we're adding potentially $40,000 right now to that effort. And we're not going to hide that.
And that's reducing our ARPA funds that we would have been spending on some other projects.
No. Our goal, again, is to keep using the 1.6. It's just you're now adding, starting in FY25, additional money from the city to cover it. Yeah.
And just to kind of round it out too, and that's a great point too, to make up for this, I mean, you can definitely structure negotiations in terms of onboarding for software to mitigate the overall cost too. So there are wiggle room when you get into that phase to find savings as well. And I've experienced that from multiple different other software contracts that we've executed over the last 3 years here with the city. So that is an expectation of mine.
My final question is, what is the time frame going forward now, the reissuing of the second RFP? When do we expect to get bids, and when do we expect to?
The second RFP, you mean the utility billing?
Yes.
That closes as of, I would have to get a separate document out here if I can remember at the top of my head. So, get a calendar out. The HR financials one is the third RFP. Utility billing is right now. It's currently out for bid. It's already been posted for about 2.5 weeks. That one is a 45-day open proposal. We wanted to also decrease response rates, put it open longer. So we issued it out for an additional week. So that should be closing, I want to say, by the end of the month. And then, not this month, I'm sorry, midpoint, so September 15th. So we'll have that date, and I can, definitely give some feedback on what the actual response rate was for that. And then HR financials would be in sequence with that. We would close one and then activate the other, open it for 45 days. And that kind of phasing plan allows us to close the tax process, get that process going, begin the whole kind of intake of all the proposals. There's a lot of scoring. That's another huge benefit service of Berry Dunn. They're able to basically kind of quote unquote gut all of the proposals and build it into, they call a summary memo, which is this. So it's essentially an executive summary with about a litany of details behind it in terms of how they scored in each individual category. So that's a big lift and a big deliverable. And then from there, you start doing all of your sub-contextual evaluation. So you reach out to, like we've been doing today, other jurisdictional cross-reference checks. You're doing your software straight, just 2-day-long demonstrations per vendor. There's a lot of ins and outs, and then, of course, the final contracting and negotiations phase for each. But usually that phase in and of itself, the evaluation phase, takes about, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks per phase. So we're at the very end of that, and we actually just got started. Granted, we had the interruption of City Hall migration, so getting the Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer to participate was the reason that this current phase lasted just a little bit longer.
So can we get a revised timeline?
Yes.
That you laid out for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Banks?
I got a question that's related to Councilmember Moore's first question. So I'm just curious, in regards to Barry Dunn, our consultant, didn't we use a resident as well, I guess a GMU instructor, Mr. McLaughlin, and what was his role in this process?
So John McLaughlin, yes, he's a George Mason, can't remember what level of professorship he has, but he's there with the College of Engineering and facilitating kind of business architecture. He works as a project manager, so we have multiple projects ongoing across all elements of our kind of current ongoing things. So from a project management, he's in a part-time capacity, so he dedicates within a kind of normal 2-week cycle, roughly about 20 hours per cycle, just helping to facilitate vendoring management in terms of, hey, where is this deliverable? How are we tracking? What's our schedule at? So he's basically the Microsoft project team lead for making sure that all of the kind of deliverables per project are ordered out in sequence, and then we're holding all our vendors accountable. And then for ongoing stuff that we're just doing normal engagement work, like our GIS system, he's just tracking those ongoing enhancements and things that we're doing with engagement from that standpoint. So his portfolio is kind of on the same par as mine, but we're kind of work hand in hand together.
And he's doing this all on a volunteer basis?
As a part-time employee.
Got it. And my final question is, what are the risks involved in terms of going with this approach where we're going with an RFP that's kind of in pieces, in
Yeah.
different parts?
They're always going to be associated with this. I'm not saying that this is going to be 100%. It's always a risk, but any of these factors could pop up at any time. I can't predict that either, and that's just the risk of doing this. If we had done this independently as a city, with no help at all from a consultant, I would strongly believe that our level of thoroughness in terms of developing the RFP in of itself, and I can show you the sample. You can go to the city website, actually. The utility building one is actually on there under the purchasing component of it. You can see the depth of the ask that we've actually put out there. So when I say that we're putting our strongest foot forward to make sure that vendors we are saying how high to jump, and they're jumping, that's always the case, that you can run into any of these factors and you might get limited responses. But that's in any RFP process, not just this one.
But the risk from an implementation standpoint can go either way, right? If you pick the right company that ends up working out and they're doing the full gamut of your ERP, great. But what if they don't work out, even after evaluation process, and then you have systemic failures? Whereas here, you're kind of, because you're picking among multiple, you're kind of hedging some risks. Perhaps one or two of the systems work fine, and then if one of them fails, at least you can target and pinpoint what's failing and then take the approach to replace that versus the entire one. So there's risk either way from doing this, but to Chris's point, the technology is advanced, that the integration between modules is much more robust now than it even was in 2017 when we were evaluating this.
Okay. And Falls churches what are our neighbors doing?
In terms of the
Tyler.
systems that they're using?
Tyler.
Is Tyler, Prince William?
Not every
Not
one of
Prince
them.
William.
They do, Loudon uses Oracle. The larger entities kind of have a blended approach.
I want to say Prince William uses CGI. What was the
Oracle
platform?
base.
I'll have to get back with you, but I'm almost certain it's a CGI product
Okay.
for Prince William County. Fairfax County, I think, use Oracle. Didn't Loudon use Oracle or switch to?
Yeah, those larger
But
entities
again,
are
we
all
don't-
mass users.
Oracle and SAP are not we're too small for those platforms. They're usually the larger municipalities and federal government scope. We're much smaller than that, but we're not small like the small towns who utilize a totally different set of vendors. So each scale of jurisdiction has a different set of vendors. And right now, Tyler is the dominant one in Virginia for cities, but they already took a lot of those businesses years ago. It wasn't like they're just doing it now. Like Manassas started their implementation of Tyler over 6 years ago, right? Same with Percival as well. Leesburg, a lot of these jurisdictions, they all started a long time ago. Falls Church has had them for over 15 years, I believe, with Tyler. So there hasn't been a lot of new implementations with Tyler recently in the immediate Northern Virginia area.
Thanks.
But there are other representations. It's just the majority market share. So I do want to put that point home that there are other solutions out there.
I want to say it's called Advantage, CGI Advantage. I think that's what Prince William County utilizes.
Thank you.
Follow-up? Any other comments, questions? Yes, Councilmember Javed.
So is that why we are not going with the one vendor that's, can do all the functions? You mentioned that because you wanted two separate.
No, that's that. I'm open to either. My goal was, at the start, was to do one vendor for the whole thing, right? So a few years ago, Tyler made the most sense, but we wanted a competitive process because there's issues. And not to say that we're ruling out Tyler. That's not what we're doing. I just want to make that clear.
So they were the only one, that was the one vendor that we.
That responded to the entire piece. To Chris's point, the RFP allowed vendors to submit for smaller pieces.
Yeah.
And how many did we have for?
Well, that's one
tax?
thing. From a tax perspective, you have to think about Virginia taxes. Not every system can respond to what the, I guess, intricacies are involved with processing Virginia. So there's really only 4 companies that really provide Virginia tax-based systems that work. And that's actually pretty prevalent around here. We got 2. one of which is actually more prominent than Tyler in Northern Virginia. So it's utilized by Prince William County, it's utilized by Alexandria, a couple other localities in Northern Virginia, as well as in the southern part of the states. It's called Avenity. They're actually a Fairfax-based company, Fairfax or Arlington, but they do tax processing and cashiering management for Commissioner of Revenue and Treasurer. So that's one proposal. Another one is PCI. They did not respond. The fourth solution, that's Keystone. So you can think about that's a very limited scope. So to at least even have two, 50%, I mean, obviously percentages can be scaled based off of your total vendors, but that's half of the total, and with us knowing who the third out of the fourth group is, which Keystone. So
Right, so if I understand right, so we have one vendor for the tax, one vendor for utility, one vendor for finance.
and HR, that is,
So three different vendors in one ERP.
Yes.
for,
Potential.
you can do that. That is one option on the table. They call it a best-of-breed type approach, so you're looking for who can do the system-specific stuff the best. The problem with most vendors is they might have originally done this really well, and then they branch out and attach different things as they grow. That's actually kind of why just want to make sure that we're not just going with Tyler for the sake of going Tyler just because they responded. And my understanding of them is they are extremely limited in certain areas. They are good in others. The problem is if we just get behind the line and go in the direction everyone else is going, that might not be what's best for our city.
Looking like financially, does it make sense to have three different vendors with three different charges?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we could consolidate that in one vendor.
But you're not necessarily getting like a discount per. So if you take an item out, you're not necessarily paying that for part of a normal system. So it's like
But
the
to
cost still add
clarify,
up.
if you take that approach, we'd have to wait, we'd either have to go with Tyler right now, who's the only one who responded to the RFP, or we'd have to wait again and then reissue the entire one to see if we get multiple. So we don't have that option right now unless you just want to go with Tyler.
But I thought we did have the option, because they had the option of applying for any piece of what we.
They did, but what Councilmember Javed is asking is why don't we just go with one vendor?
No, I agree.
Yeah, and so the only thing is, to do that, we'd have to select Tyler as that one vendor right now, because they're the only one who's responded. Yeah. Or we wait and then reissue the comprehensive one again, if that's the approach. But I don't think that was the approach you were advocating for.
Well, no,
just a
my
few
point
minutes ago.
was
Yeah.
that they had the opportunity with this current RFP to say, I don't want to do all this other part, I'm going to do just the taxes, or I want to do just HR. They could have done that with this RFP now. They could have only responded to pieces of it.
Yeah, but I believe there was assumption that because we issued it holistically, that we were just going to go with Tyler like everyone else. We're making it clear now by doing it this way that that's not the case, and that's increasing the engagement that Chris is getting now from his interested vendors. Because to your point again, everyone's using Tyler.
Right.
So from a business standpoint, they don't think that we're going to go with anyone else but Tyler.
But maybe offline, can you do pros and cons of Tyler?
Sure. I
I
can
mean-
speak to you guys one-on-one as well. We can go with Tyler still, if you guys want to do my,
Well, what about the customer service issues? I mean, I would have reservations.
again, tonight I'm not going to speak badly about Tyler. That's not my goal tonight. They're still an option for us, and I want to maintain good relationships with everyone who's an option for us.
See where this goes, I guess.
Yeah.
I got it.
Another 45 days.
That's what I'm saying, updated timeline would be helpful.
Well, I just want to make that clear. We don't get any additional service from them. So once this proposal ends, that's kind of it from the consulting perspective. So if you want us to go it alone, I would advise against that because I do find the value in some of the leftover services, just because I know my own limitations and also the ability to aggregate all the information and compile it together. If you've ever seen a Tyler or even a vendor response, it's thousands of pages long. That's a lot to go through for very limited staff and be able to comprehensively understand what it's doing for you. I would be remiss to say that that is also offsetting staff time. So you're talking about total labor cost and effort to get that stuff done as well, on time. So you talk about elongating timeline. If we do it alone, I would definitely guarantee that that would go well into the FY24 phase to get everything at least identified.
Follow-up?
Yeah, I got a question.
Vice Mayor Banks?
I want to break it down because we're all very confused here of our limited choice of options. Break it down to our first principles, and that is we want an ERP system that is quality and that will work well. We don't want to hedge. We don't want to put things at risk, but we just want a system that works well, right, and serves our needs. And it sounds like we don't have one.
From a Keystone perspective is what you're talking about, or?
No, from our options.
Okay.
It sounds like that. So if we can somehow just focus on that first principle, and go, okay, what's it gonna take to get a system that works well? Because I don't wanna hedge, because that's gambling.
No, we're not hedging, though. You're risking, even by going with one person, like if you guys are saying, let's just go with one person, and you're going with Tyler, there are risks. There's always risks to any decision you're going to make.
But is
My
it-
whole point was that there's different types of risks depending on the two solutions. I'm not saying we're taking the most aggressive approach
Right.
to try to get the best solution for all these different modules.
But there's different types of risk, but is it more riskier than having a single ERP?
Depends how you want to look at it. If you're saying that we're picking the best tax system, the best utilities, and the best HR and financials that are specific to those, then you're picking better, by definition, modules for each of those. Now the key issue is just integration. You could make the argument that you're actually reducing risk by picking the best for each of those versus laying it all on for one company to demonstrate that they can do all those things well.
But what's the chances that we're going to get the best responding to our RFP?
Just based off of my just learnings by talking with other jurisdictions, a lot of them procured Tyler in like that in the 2000s and 2010s. They're not out there for bid right now. The number one reason was just they don't have to, it's convenience factor. So that's, at the time it was the one they were looking for, the one-stop shop, and that was kind of like the mandate to start. But that doesn't necessarily mean best, it just means it's the most convenient. So I'd want to make sure that what we're getting right now, I can't compare it to anything because I haven't seen anything else. So I can't necessarily say it's a great solution because there's no benchmark other than Keystone, which, like I said, we're not talking about bad-mouthing, but I would be remiss to find any system that is at least improvement from where we're at right now, and for all the reasons that we've talked about from all the sessions beforehand.
But that's lowering the bar. We want a system that works well.
Correct, and I don't have another data point to say that this system is exponentially better or worse. I'm just seeing what is.
And I think right now, the only thing we can go on is the requirements gathering.
Yeah.
And does these systems meet the requirements? Right now, that sounds like that's our only point of comparison.
That's absolutely right.
But the devil's in
That's
the
what we want.
details. You need to be able to see the demonstrations. You need, there's a raising your hand saying, yeah, we do that, and then you see how they say they do that. And then I have to have the Commissioner of Revenue, Treasurer, and Finance and HR staff sit down and understand if that process even makes sense for us to even do it that way. So there's a lot of alignment that needs to occur, which I want to make sure also this is a morale type standpoint. I don't want to have staff just get fed another decision from the top down and not have them the ability to kind of test and evaluate, because this is a retention tool for the rest of, however long we have this next system. This is what they're going to be utilizing every single day.
But let's be honest, by the time we get to testing, you already have the system, so they're kind of stuck with it, except for the modifications they could suggest.
But we would have at least given the due diligence up front and had a consensus, staff-driven approach to select the best system that everybody agrees works the best way.
I see, okay.
And Chris, right now, the issue is integrating with other systems. So that's-
The current system, yes. From a modern system and a cloud-based system, no.
The only issue right now for Keystone is not integration with other systems.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot more.
There's a lot
issues.
more.
Risk
Yeah.
we're going to take with these different vendors as well, right?
Yeah.
We're going to go back to the same problem if we have.
No, but that's not the problem with Keystone is doing all three of these.
Okay.
So that isn't the issue. That's not, we're not saying that. Yeah. Keystone does all three of those.
So you're saying there will be no issues with the integration part with the three different vendors?
I'm not saying there won't be any issues. The point is that the technology is.
That's what we're trying to get away from, right?
No.
This process.
We're trying to get away from a system that doesn't work from a tax perspective, from a utility billings perspective, from a general ledger perspective. We're trying to get to systems that do work on those perspectives. We want to find those systems that work on those perspectives, and then, again, do the integration piece. So we want to pick those, to Councilmember Hampton's point, those software systems that meet the requirements that we spent so far $82,000 worth of money on delineating, that best meet those requirements, right? But then, yes, you have to take that next step of integration.
So what's the cost of doing the RFP again? Not the piece, the part, one, but the whole system RFP? What's the
If we
cost?
reissue the same thing again,
Yeah.
we'd be reissuing, so I'm not sure what the cost would be.
We would change the dates and put it back out for
Yeah,
bid,
just
to my
right.
understanding.
And what if some of the underlying conditions have changed? right? I mean,
But,
it is a different.
but can we please have that conversation? Because I was just being, I think chastised, probably rightfully so, by Councilor Moore for taking this approach
Well, he was just passive.
of going just for one system if the market did not bear that out as a result. So I think you guys need to have that conversation if you really want us to do the same thing that just failed. Like, so yes, rightfully chastise me for taking that approach right now, but if you guys decide to take that approach again, it's on you this time.
Have differing, I mean, we're
Yeah.
different. And I'm trying to come up with a solution that's optimal for our need.
To your point, it is an option. Just whether or not that will actually have an impact, it will just be a test.
It doesn't hurt, doesn't cost any money, and it's worth a try versus this $45,000 solution or option.
I have a question though about that. If we reissued it, would the review of it and the compilation, would we be charged with that again? Or would that fall on our existing contract with the vendor?
Oh, any rework would be reissued as well. So we would basically reset the process backwards and have to redo it if we were going to continue on the consulting path. So the way that you're thinking, I would say, yes, you can do that, but it would just kind of set us back and start the process back over with them.
It would definitely delay everything.
Which
if
is
we
lose
did.
time.
And we'll get the same result.
Which sometimes you have to be patient. And I mean, especially in situations like this, when you have to give up something. I'd rather give up time and get a quality
Just
product.
remember, again, like, anytime we have issues where residents are complaining about different financial issues, online payments, incorrect tax bills, what have we consistently said? What have we consistently said? Like, we were inherited a system that doesn't work.
Right.
And all we can do right now is the best to replace that system, and that's where we're headed to. So we're saying we're going to delay that process. We're just delaying getting adequate services to our residents, and that's my concern.
The other issue is we're just not losing time if we reissued as is. We're actually going to be losing money because we would be charged all over again as a whole new project.
I'm sorry, Laura, I can't hear you. Could you please repeat that?
Sure. If we reissued the RFP as is, it would be considered a whole new project. At least that's my understanding. It would be billed as a whole new project again.
Let me,
So we're not just losing time, but we're also losing
I think for the review
additional
process.
It goes back to about right here. So the only thing that we've done so far to redevelopment, basically we've just itemized out certain elements. So the RFP package for the individual ones, it's kind of already constructed. There's just different ways of like stating it. So we would just kind of assume kind of all of these aspects of the cost backwards, plus the final phases of it as well,
So it'd be less from proposal summary memo
all the way down to the bottom.
from the total amount that now exists.
Correct.
That's what we would be charged.
I would have to clarify that with the vendor, but based off of that, because there's like step by step, yes.
Chris, did the did the consultant review the Tyler proposal, the one that we did receive, and did they score that?
They scored the tax,
Just the tax, not the whole?
just the tax.
presentation? Why not the whole presentation?
It was advised against it, and this was them advising against it, because, like I said, you talk about advisory service, this was the path forward. This is kind of a city and consultant mutual kind of understanding that one response does not beget a thorough process. So we decided to get the scoring done with the one that we got multiple responses for. And that was the business decision that was made, both with their advice and our kind of, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for us.
There's one last question for me. Will they be negotiating the user fees with these separate vendors as well?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Will they be negotiating the user fees, I guess, for the utility billing side?
The contract.
The
contract.
I guess, with.
I'm trying, I just want to make sure I understand
So
the user
if
fees.
we go with the utility billing software, whatever it is, or tax, let's say we go with the Venity, are they going to help us negotiate the price structure and the contract?
Oh,
with
yeah,
that?
that's part of the contract negotiation assistance part, an element of two. Yep. Sorry about that, yeah, I just wasn't.
No worries, but it'll be hopefully more, less than what our current residents are paying right now.
For Keystone?
They'll evaluate, no, for the utility.
Again, but we're using Keystone for that right now.
So, I mean, but there's a charge fee, online payment, I'm saying.
Oh, I see. what
Oh,
you're saying.
okay, I
That
think-
has, I don't think that has anything to do with the ERP.
This has absolutely nothing to do with all whatsoever.
That has
That's
to do
a
with the
whole
credit
different-
card.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
They
credit,
don't negotiate on our behalf.
No,
That's a
that
totally
is,
different
that is
system.
all, like, that's a merchant service provider fee from a credit card transaction company. We use Elavon off of a state-managed contract.
I see.
we've maximized that rate to the lowest as possible. The next step is for us to pay, to eat that ourselves, if that's a decision you guys want to do, but that involves costs. So that would be the next step in reducing those fees to
Yeah, I was
the
just wondering
customers.
if that was what they're negotiating.
Yeah.
or just-
No. Just the
Okay.
contract
Yeah,
for
there
those specific.
there isn't a local government that utilizes a merchant service that doesn't have some sort of transaction cost associated with doing credit card processing.
Comments, questions? I'm sorry. Comments, questions? I think we're ready to take a vote. Okay, the motion is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the Barry Dunn scope of work change request regarding additional enterprise resource planning consulting services at a cost not to exceed $45,000 as presented and subject to final review by the city attorney. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
One abstention.
One abstention from Councilmember Moore. Okay, thank you. It passes. Thank you, Chris. Railroad Drive culverts, 9D. Welcome, Calvin.
Mayor Banks, members of council, citizens, staff, and guests, Calvin O'Donnell, Director of Community Development. First item I have for your business tonight is regarding the Railroad Drive.
Do you have a microphone?
You gotta pull it up to you.
Okay, so this item of business is regarding the Railroad Drive culverts. There are actually two sets of culverts that travel under Railroad Drive. There was a map in your packet that sort of lays out, there's 4 culverts in the general area, but 3 of those are double-barrel culverts. 1 set goes under Manassas Drive, 2 sets go under Railroad Drive, one directly at the entrance of Railroad Drive off Manassas Drive, and the other at the entrance to the VRE parking lot. The downstream culvert that we'll talk the most about is actually the one that goes into the VRE parking lot. Neither of these 2 Railroad Drive sets of culverts were in the VDOT inventory, requiring annual structure inspection, but because we did go out and seek a raise grant, we did have structure inspections conducted on these culverts. And one of these structure inspection for the downstream culvert actually came back a Category 3. Considering that that's critical, Mosby was actually a 4 in its inspection before it failed. So it was 1 grade better than this one is scoring. That's why tonight we are actually recommending that we use emergency procurement procedures, or that the governing body authorize emergency procurement procedures so that we can go ahead and address the structure of these culverts quickly. Now, we had always envisioned doing these as a group, as a set, the downstream and upstream sets of culverts, so that we would get economies of scale. We always knew that they needed the same type of treatment condition, that one vendor would probably give us a better deal if they got both of it at the same time. The other one scored as a 5. It's still not great, but it's not critical. But we would be seeking emergency procurement procedures to take care of both of these culverts at one time. Now, the rehab would involve completely reconditioning the bottom of the culvert, and then filling any voids around the culvert from where soil is migrated and possibly weaken the structure of the culvert, and then going in and spraying a cementitious lining on the inside of the culvert, very similar to what we did on the last culvert that we had the sinkhole on Manassas Drive. We have set out $2 million in ARPA for these culvert rehabilitations, and we do believe that we will be able to meet that price if we go out emergency procurement. There are 2 motions before you tonight. The first one is actually to approve the resolution authorizing us to use emergency procurement procedures. That does not obligate any spending of funds, does not commit any funds, but the second motion would then authorize the city manager to sign the contract documentation with whatever vendor we find. Then you would be allowing the city manager to sign documentation that would commit up to $2 million in funds from the ARPA line that we originally designated this from. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Calvin. I think we absolutely have to do this culvert work. We cannot be in a position where we have another failure. And I think we need to do everything we can to fast-track this project. Any comments or questions? Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Calvin, for the excellent report. Just a quick question, I guess it's maybe directed to the city manager. On the budgeted sheet, it shows the $2 million is not being budgeted, but this was originally budgeted. The X is under the no section.
That's our bad.
Okay, to make sure. Yeah,
Can
no,
you
no,
turn,
that's
is your
fine.
microphone on, Laszlo?
Yeah, I said that we recycle agenda items sometimes, and we forgot to
Okay.
move that X, so
it has been
it is, but
budgeted
yeah.
$100.
Correct, look at the more important one is where it says amount budgeted, 2 million.
Budget.
Yeah, correct, I can see how that's very contradictory, because it was already budgeted, and it's the $2 million,
Thank
yes,
you.
my apologies.
Fantastic, thank you.
Out of curiosity, what's the best rating a culvert can get? So what's the highest number they can get?
Wow, maybe a 6. 5 is a fair. 6 might be good. No need for any action at all. Not quite sure. I'm not the most familiar with the VDOT scoring system, and I don't have one of the bridge and inspection reports in front of me. But I can certainly get back to you with that answer. I think it's a 6, but don't hold me to that.
So critical rating is 3.
Yeah.
Probably number 1 is see you in the Potomac River.
Yeah, if 3 is critical, and Mosby was a 4, I don't really want to know what a 2 and a 1 is.
Right. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
So do we have a formal bid yet?
No.
So how are we estimating 2 million cost?
We had looked into these culverts for the ARPA budget process. That was how we came up with the $2 million figure.
So is there any contingencies built in, or is that the base?
If we can't get something for $2 million, we'll be back to you with a discussion about how much it's going to cost.
Right.
Cross your fingers.
But the 2 million would be with the contingency, because obviously if you have a contract and the contingency takes it over 2 million, we'd have to bring it back to you.
Okay. So yes, the 2 million is the cap.
Right, that is the maximum.
Comments, questions? Follow-up?
No.
Okay, there are 2 motions. The first one, that the governing body adopt a resolution authorizing emergency procurement for the prompt execution of the Railroad Drive Culverts Rehabilitation Project as presented.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Second one, that the governing body authorize the city manager to approve and execute 1 or more contracts for the rehabilitation of the Railroad Drive culverts at an amount not to exceed $2 million, subject to final review by city attorney. We have a motion?
Moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Calvin. Next, we have Upper Kent Drive reconstruction.
Okay, everyone should have had a revised agenda item in front of them when they got here. There were some changes. The primary change to the agenda item was
You have it on there, let me bring it up so we can show the residents. It's highlighted. Yeah, we highlighted the changes that we made today. We just want to make sure we put it on the screen so residents can see as well. Okay, so we have it on both screens now. We want to scroll up a little bit. There's just
Okay, so the primary change to the agenda item that was originally in the packet is regarding the total funding, the total budget ask for FY '23. But to go into the agenda item itself, in October of 2018, we entered into a funding agreement with VDOT. It was a revenue sharing agreement that had $273,000 $499 coming from VDOT, $290,501 coming from the city for a grand total of $564. Clearly, this project has gotten more expensive than that. The construction estimate then climbed to increase the total project cost to $814,136.18. So that was when in FY 2022, we actually came forth with a PRTC resolution adding an additional $250,000 in PRTC funds to the project. Then we reached 100% design, put out an IFP in July, and the bids were due August 5th. Unfortunately, Crown Construction came in as the low bidder. It's not unfortunate that Crown was the low bidder, but they were actually higher than the engineer's estimate. Their low bid was $766,463. But they did substantially better than the next lowest bidder, which was Finley Asphalt and Sealing at $1,060,000 and some change. Of course, to recommend this, we'd never like to enter into a contract where there's not at least some contingency to cover change orders, so we would be recommending a 5% contingency on top of Crown's low bid. That 5% contingency would come to a total of $38,323.15. We did have in the budget from the PRTC and the city's allocations, the VDOT allocations, the previous MVTA allocations, $723,338.49 remaining from the FY22 budget. So that would hypothetically carry over into this year, but that does leave a funding delta with all of these totals put together of $144,438.71. That is what would have to be covered in the budget that wasn't left over from FY22. So the grand total, $867,777.20 in FY23 would cover Crown's construction bid with the 5% contingency and the remainder of the Bowman contract, which was the error that's highlighted here. We had omitted the remainder of Bowman's contract, which provided construction phase services for construction inspections and then construction engineering. Those are required by VDOT in a revenue sharing project, so we can't just wing it. We actually did see if VDOT could offer those services in-house. They could not do better than Bowman did. This is the figure we need to budget in FY23, the $867,777.20, which is $144,438.71 additional from what we had previously.
And so just to clarify, the $804,000 financial impact, that's the contract we're bringing forward tonight. You already approved the rest of the funding in a previous meeting.
Yeah.
That's why the financial impact tonight is the 804, but I know this is complicated because in FY23, we have to carry over funds plus add the additional 144 to make the FY23 budget whole. Does that make sense? Okay.
Comments or questions? Quick. Yes, ma'am.
Lasso, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, so,
Because I feel like I'm taking a math test.
so you all already approved a Bowman contract that had a total amount, right? Which was spent $90,000 already, plus an additional, what is it, Calvin? $62,000 that's needed. That was already an approved upon contract that the governing body approved. Now, tonight, we're asking you to approve a new contract of $804,000 for the construction. But for the budget amendment, we still need to add that remaining 62, or not, you already had the 62,000 covered in the budget amendment with the current dollars there, but you need an additional 144,000 to fully cover this 804,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a second question. Have we worked with Crown Construction before?
I have not. I don't remember Crown winning a bid of 16 years, but no, I can't say that we have or haven't unless someone with more tenure remembers it.
I think you're the only one here that's got the tenure, so, all right, thank you.
That's working with them.
Follow-up? Yes.
Just got one quick question. So the motion, the second motion, why are we including the 867?
Yeah.
Because
that-
why not just the 144?
Because that will be the new FY23 dollar amount. So what you're directing me there is when I come back in December for the mid-year budget review, and the line item for this project is going to say the $867,000, because that's the full amounts that's needed in FY '23 to get the project done.
So you don't need to state the carryover.
The
It has to
yeah.
be double, basically from FY '22 budget and then FY '23.
No, from FY '22, we're bringing over $723,000, and then we're already bringing that over, and then we need to add that additional $144,000. So the total is going to be the $867 that is going to be in that line item.
You have a question? Okay.
So I guess to just make it easier, sorry, tonight you're approving a contract for $804,000, and you're also approving a budget amendment of $144,000 in addition to the carryover from FY '22.
Thank you, Dean, for the updated motions. It's a meld of Calvin and Dean. Okay. The first motion is that the governing body award a contract for the Upper Kent Drive reconstruction project to Crown Construction Service Incorporated for $766,463, along with a contingency of $38,323.15, for a total amount not to exceed $804,786.15, and authorize city manager to sign the resulting construction agreement as presented and subject to final review by the city attorney.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. The next motion is that the governing body direct the city manager to include $867,777.20 for the Upper Kent reconstruction project in the FY 2023 budget amendment, to be comprised of $723,338.49 in carryover funds from FY 2022 and an additional $144,438.71 in MBTA funding.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you.
Moving on to 9F, which is fire engine purchase approval.
Just close this now.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I see this number right here, 918. And then the second recommendation is 914. So that number is 4,000. You may go ahead. So do I. You good? Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the governing body. Come in front of you today to discuss the fiscal year 23 CIP purchase of the new fire engine. The Fire and Rescue Department would like to request approval to purchase the new 2022 Pierce fire engine to replace our 2008 Pierce fire engine. In doing so, it follows the industry standards along with the NFPA 1901 recommendations of replacing a fire apparatus between 10 and 15 years of service time. The fire department would recommend buying a 2022 Pierce fire engine from Atlantic Emergency Solutions, operating off the Houston-Galveston Area Council procurement contract. Excuse me, I got it. Over the last year, during the design phase of this engine, we saw 2 price increases due to current inflation costs, one in February of 2022 and the other in May of 2022. These 2 price increases drove the cost of this truck up $45,000. We were advised of another price increase that could potentially be happening in July of 2022, which has not yet occurred, thankfully, and we have not heard anything else, so we don't necessarily think it's going to happen. So we received 3 quotes for financing, with the cheapest quote of 3.79%, or with 5 annual payments of $183 beginning in October of 2022. The financial quotes were reviewed by our Director of Finance and before selecting Republic First National Bank. The final cost of the new fire engine after the interest rate was included is $918,404.30. This request is solely for approving the purchase of the new Pierce Enforcer while the contractual documentation is being reviewed and finalized between the city's legal counsel and Republic First National. A note to add that a budget amendment will be needed. Annual payments were assumed through the CIP that it was going to be $169,000 yearly. Because of the increased principal and rising interest rates, that annual payment amount is $183,680. Thus, the city will need to add a $14,680 to each year's CIP budget for fiscal year 23 to 27. We took a little hit with the inflation costs over the last year, on top of the fact that ARPA funding has driven up the demand for fire truck production and really driven up the cost of the fire trucks. So, ready for any questions? Did you have?
Thank you.
Sorry, one clarification, and are you going to email?
Yeah, I'm going to email you a revision, but apparently there's a number, the two numbers, the amount for, that's listed up in the table is not the same as the amount.
Yeah, the motion is incorrect, the number in the motion, so we're sending you the updated number for the motion. Yeah.
So keep talking for just a couple seconds, okay?
Comment, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
When, I know we're going to order it now, we'll possibly order now, when would delivery occur?
So with the rise in production needs, because of ARPA funding and all the others, we're looking at probably a 24 to 30 month time frame of production beginning to end.
I think the baby elephant's born before that.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. And we're seeing it with all of our vehicles, including, medic units and, talking to vendors. The amount of time it takes for production is greatly increased, to the point to where, we're starting to look at, our CIP numbers and stuff and saying, okay, are we needing to project it out sooner than later because of the amount of time of production? So,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Comments or questions?
Just a quick question.
Yes.
The 2008 Pierce that we currently have,
Yes,
once
sir.
we receive the new engine, will we do surplus on this? And is there any resale value on the 2008?
Yes, there will be resale value. Typically, what we've done in the past is sold the fire truck resale. There has been discussions amongst staff of to administrative staff to keep this fire truck for future training needs. On top of the fact that, as our current first out engine lifespan gets older, it starts to need more maintenance, and it goes out of service for longer periods of time. So that would also allow us to potentially have a third fire truck to use to keep the lifespan of those fire trucks extended.
So the plan is to keep it?
Yes.
Thanks.
Any comments or questions? Okay.
I think we're still working
Awaiting
on.
the motion from Dean.
Yeah.
We'll ask another question. So
Sure,
what's
go
the
ahead.
new Trends in fire departments.
Say that again?
What's some of the new trends in the fire trucks?
So one of the newest trends, and a couple of different manufacturers are going down the road of electric. Pierce, I think there's a department in California right now that is trying out that going down that road. It's way too early to tell, and I think they also have diesel engine backup as well in case of failure. But it's way too early to tell how successful they're going to be. So.
And of note with that, a lot of the major car companies are committed to moving to entirely electric between 2025 and 2035. So it's something we're evaluating as a staff, that eventually our fleet, we may have no choice but to go all electric, and then we have to think about the infrastructure, the charging and all that. So it's an analysis that's already being done by our transportation program manager.
Questions? Okay. The first motion is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents for the purchase of a 2022 Pierce Enforcer fire engine by writing the HGAC National Cooperative Purchasing Contract as presented and subject to final city attorney review. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Second motion is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents to finance the purchase of a 2022 Pierce Enforcer fire engine at a rate not to exceed 3.79% over a 5-year period for an overall total cost not to exceed $918,404.30 as presented and subject to final city attorney review.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, dispatch workstations, purchase approval. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body. Tonight, I'm bringing up 2 agenda items. One is going to be the new dispatch center workstations. This was approved in the FY23 CIP budget. So tonight, I'm requesting authorization to move forward with this purchase utilizing the GCAC contract for $69,069.27. And then at mid-year, we'll probably be asking for an adjustment to add the service maintenance contract of $6,450. So the total impact tonight is going to be $69,069.27.
Questions, comments? Questions? No questions. Okay, the motion is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents with Evans Consoles Incorporated to purchase and have installed new E911 dispatch workstations at a cost not to exceed $69,069.27 as presented, subject to final review by city attorney.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Computer-aided dispatch.
The second item tonight was also approved in the FY23 CIP. So we're requesting authorization to move forward with the purchase of the upgrade. This is going to be a contract over 6 years at $48,000 per year with Axon Enterprise.
Comments or questions? Okay.
I've got one, actually.
Yes,
So
go ahead.
How does this, I guess, the next-gen 911 that we, is that integrate with this system?
Yes, sir. It'll integrate with that and our new RMS system.
Yeah.
And on parking, everything, GIS mapping, it'll all integrate.
Yeah,
Is that
just,
done in-house, all the, or do we have to pay extra for that?
No, it's all integrated, so it's all done in-house.
yeah, I was just going to say, I think Next Gen 911 is what a resident, the technology for a resident to contact the police, and then this one is for the dispatch to contact the officer to send them away. And it's all integrated now with Axon, who does our records management and all the other
Or those are the
items.
next-gen too? Excellent.
They're not doing the Next Gen, no, but the rest of the piece they are.
Okay, the motion is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents with Axon Enterprise Incorporated to purchase a new computer-aided dispatch system at a total cost of $288,000, paid in 6 yearly installments of $48,000 each, as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
48.
Okay, acceptance of SRO funding. This is wonderful news.
Absolutely. This is great news, as the mayor said. Really good item. This, technically, we don't need a resolution for this funding. We're already going to receive it from the state, but for 2 reasons we're doing this. For number one, for audits. When auditors come in here to look at grant revenues, they want to see a resolution of approval from the governing body, and then for transparency purposes as well. Anytime we're receiving a grant, we always want to notify you and have your blessing to receive the funding. We don't see any reason why we wouldn't accept this money on this one. We're receiving about $80,000 from the state government. to fully fund an SRO position. We have one funded right now internally from a city budget perspective, with the schools providing a partial reimbursement, and we house that SRO at the high school. With this additional hire, we would position them in the middle school, and as the memo stated there, we have a plan here over the next month to come back to you all as promised with additional plan to make sure that we have an SRO in every single campus of our city. We're also, the police has done a pretty extensive evaluation working with schools on facility enhancements to avoid some of the mistakes that have occurred in other school systems with active shooters. We're going to be working with the schools here to go over some of those details that our police have gotten. So just expecting, hopefully in September, we're coming back with a comprehensive plan for funding SROs at every school and robust facility enhancements, hopefully financed over a few years to make sure that we make it as difficult as possible for any active shooter to enter any school facility. The main benefit of this, again, now having an officer in each campus, the good thing we have is that those campuses are actually combined. Right, so middle school and high school are together, so that gives each of those officers additional quick backup if there is an active shooter as well. So we're very excited that the state came through with some funding, and we're going to be looking at means to fund all the rest of the SROs that we need.
Wonderful news that we will eventually have 4. That's tremendous.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just got one. So are we budgeting after year 1, this position? What are we?
Yeah, I believe this is going to be funded likely over 3 years by the state. Is that correct, Chief, from what you heard? I believe it's a 3-year funding cycle for this.
The first year is the only year they're going to pay you.
Entirely, then it starts going down each year.
Go from 75, 25%.
Okay, so it looks like there's a 25% then match years beyond that point, so we'd have to again utilize the plan that we're going to recommend is we use the red light camera and the speeding camera revenues to reinvest to make sure that we have fully funded SROs.
That makes sense. Follow-up? Any other questions or comments? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body adopt a resolution as presented, accepting the $80,674 from the Commonwealth of Virginia's Department of Criminal Justice Services to hire an additional school resource officer for our city schools.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have a motion?
We
So
moved
moved.
and second already.
Okay, thanks. I didn't hear that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
It's on you now.
Moving on, next we have a special presentation to Vice Mayor Preston Banks. Vice Mayor Banks has been a member of the governing body for a number of years, and we are really going to miss you, Preston, honestly. You know, we've appreciated your presence on council, and I think it can be said that you have always been a gentleman, always. This plaque is a token of the city's appreciation for the years of service on this body, and we would like to request that you say a few words.
Thanks. This is just in time before the movers come tomorrow. But, I mean, yeah, I was, it took the perfect job. I was talking to a friend of mine before all of this, and I said it'll take the perfect job to take me away from Manassas Park, and then weeks later, it's like, God or the universe played some type of joke and was like, here you go. And it appeared. And it's been months of interviews and talks, but it's the perfect job, and it's out in Las Vegas at a casino. And I will miss you all. It's been great times. I think I first started here, and someone actually, it was Don and I. We used to talk all the time about city issues, and serving with Martha on the Parks and Recreation Board with Catherine, and and just ran for council. When I first got elected, someone handed me an article saying that the city's going to be bankrupt like other cities during that time of the housing crisis, and somehow we survived. We did, and we're thriving now, and look at us in a new building. This is awesome. So I just wish you guys the best. I miss you all, city staff and my governing body colleagues and residents. You guys are just great, and it's a heck of an experience and a blessing to just to be here with you all and to just be part of it and just to continue the good work and treat each other with kindness. You guys, for some reason, I mean, you guys is very unique in the people who are here. I mean, we disagree like crazy, but next agenda item, it's like a new or fresh. And you still have the respect afterwards, no grudges or anything, and we treat staff with respect and treat them with kindness too. And I think that's just contagious throughout the community. So keep that up, and thank you.
Oh. I really wish you the very best of luck. Shall we go down the line and see if anyone has any wise words?
Don't gamble.
Have lots of fun.
Yeah, I think in a few months, you'll say, you know what, I used to work with legends.
Yeah.
But you will be missed.
Thanks.
And thank you for all your years of duty here in the city.
See, you have anything to say?
Thank you for caring and have fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
I think I said it all. I'm still in mourning, and when I heard that you were going to move, I still haven't recovered yet. But
You were actually one of the first people who knocked on my door when we moved here, asking because you were running the first time. So when I think back to starting here in Manassas Park, I think of you and your shirt with your name on it.
Yeah. Thanks.
So I think, you've always had really amazing outreach with the community, and they're going to miss that, and we're going to miss that. And thank you for your service.
It's been great working with you, Preston. I really enjoyed our interactions and your hard work and dedication and commitment to the city of Manassas Park and all its residents. I would only suggest that when you get to your new location that you run for the city council. Las Vegas needs great representation.
Thanks.
And it can be done. I'm an example.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, I would say it's going to be a void. You've been here almost 8 years. Stepping down and moving away, it's going to be like a black hole. It's going to be that missing piece. And thanks for your service. Good luck with your new venture, but keep us in mind,
I'll watch you on YouTube.
Yes.
No, you won't.
Especially after the next election. I'm definitely going to watch.
Right. Well, be sure to stay in touch.
Yeah.
And we're really happy that you got to experience the new city hall.
Yeah. I mean, it's just worked out
Yeah.
perfect,
Okay.
right? It was really strange.
Okay.
They're going away.
Yeah.
Okay. Public comment time. Okay. Ms. Collier. As Bob Barker would say, come on down.
I wouldn't have to go to it.
Hilarious.
There's the gentleman.
No, just leave it there. And turn your timer off because I'm gonna need more than 3 minutes. My main objective tonight was to come down and say congratulations on the new home. I mean, this has been a long time coming and it's wonderful. And I will say, the sound might not be working, but the AC is certainly working. And the second thing I came for, because I heard a rumor and it turned out not to be a rumor. I mean, our little grapevine is very active, and I heard that Preston was leaving, and I said, no, that's can't be. He's been here forever. I mean, we were both much younger when you stepped in, but it's been a real pleasure to work with you, just in the limited time that I've had with you. But for your commitment to the city and everything you've done, personally, I say thank you.
Thanks, Martha.
And that's all I came for, but it turned into a list. I mean, we're going to sit here now. I thank you for the second citizen time. This is wonderful because obviously the group has diminished, but it gives us the opportunity to address things that you have discussed tonight that we would not have the opportunity to do a month later, because by then it's old business, Back to Preston, be sure you leave the folder of the love sign in somebody's capable hands. That's been approved and it's never happened. And now's the time to do it. We love our city. We want to show everybody else how much we love our city. We got plenty of space here now to get a love sign up. And whether it be something that's already been a design approved, we still need to do it. And I see your next item on here is, well, it's actually Laszlo, but you're going to discuss decorating the chambers. I don't know where the place is for it, but I want to see all the former mayors back on the wall like they were in Old City Hall. I mean, they built this city, and they need to be still recognized. Everybody that sits in those chairs plays a big part in the development of our town. And I've been here over 25 years now, and I've sat in this room lots of times. One former mayor said he always cringed when I was in the room because he didn't know what I was here for. And I said, well, I've never come down here with a complaint. I've always been encouraging because you all do a great job, and I know it's a thankless job. But for everybody, thank you. Congratulations on your new home. Preston, congratulations, unfortunately, on your new home. But if it doesn't work out, you know you had a place to come back to.
Thanks.
So don't forget us. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Okay, city manager's report.
Can we have a sign up for the second?
Now you just talk.
I didn't know that there was a second citizens time. I thought it was a mistake on the agenda.
Okay,
So when I saw it, I didn't understand it. So
We're not on the,
I promise I won't even go 3 minutes, which that would be the biggest surprise for tonight. But I sat through a 318-page because I wanted to make sure I said something nice about Preston before he left. So, this is the send-off for you. If you got through 318 pages, you can get through anything, anywhere, in any town, in any city. So I wanted to personally thank you because when I came on the council in 2013, you were one of the people that voted for me to come on as an appointed person for a vacancy. And actually, when I look at the seven of you, that you and Jeanette are the only two people that were even on in 2013. Everybody else is newer. So I'm really glad to see that we have a vibrant democracy with lots of people willing to serve. I was your seatmate for 4 years, and the best 4 years of my life. And you'll be greatly missed. And that's all I could say publicly. You'll be greatly missed.
Thanks, Tom.
thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who is not signed up but who would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing no one, hearing no one, take it away.
Okay. I have a few items tonight. I'll ask you kind of what order you want to go, but first I want to also congratulate you, Vice Mayor Banks, for the new opportunity, and also thank you as well for everything you've done for the city, and thank you for giving me the opportunity 5 years ago as well. You're in Jeanette, what's that? Oh, thank you. You're in Jeanette's leadership over the last 5 years, or longer than that, 8 years have been crucial for turning the city around. So we're going to miss you greatly. And again, thank you for everything, and best of luck going forward. Thank you. Absolutely. I'll probably go out and visit you, catch a game. So I have two items tonight. I don't know what order you want me to go in. One is to discuss, as Martha Collier mentioned, the decorations, how you want to handle that. And the second is to go over an issue that was raised with me, I guess, Friday night, that you guys wanted me to talk about tonight, about the trash issue. So I don't know what order you all prefer. Trash first, okay, I figured. Okay, so trash, I'll be talking about the bags outside of containers. So Friday, I was off, of course, and trying to enjoy my day at the zoo with my little girl, and then I come home and I see these emails about the trash situation. So, and I was asked to come here and talk about it tonight, so that's what I will do. So there's kind of different elements of this, which is why I responded to the resident, just to clarify exactly what the concerns were and to get a little bit more specific, because there was two things done. He mentions just the contract, but there was the law change as well, and I knew that's really what he was referencing as well. So just as a matter for all of our residents, two things really happened. One, on May 10th, the governing body did adopt a new law as it pertains to solid waste collections, or new laws, if you will. I pulled out the relevant sections here that the resident was specifically concerned about. You can see I highlighted the key elements, but essentially there was a requirement to set in refuse containers for collection bag trash. That had to be in an actual container as kind of a step one. And then later on in there, the really relevant section for tonight, which you'll see, is the non-compliance. What happens if people aren't putting their trash bags in containers? Well, you can see here, what you all voted on was at the discretion of the city manager, the city may choose not to collect that refuse. We may choose to do that, right? Furthermore, the section, it gives the city the authority to cite violators of this container requirement, right? So we were getting a lot of trash and litter. There was a concern about community maintenance, about keeping the city clean, and the plan was to enforce, to start ticketing people for leaving the trash out, for leaving litter out, et cetera. So but those are kind of the key elements of what happened from a law perspective. So my clarification, we haven't cited any residents yet for this loose trash because we aren't capable of it yet. We don't have the systems in place to actually ticket. So we haven't ticketed anyone, number one. Number two, I never made the decision to tell Patriot to stop collecting trash bags. That was never relayed to Patriot. Patriot did this on their own, and we're going to talk about that. Not that everything is perfect. The city should have anticipated certain things. I should have anticipated certain things myself, and I didn't. We had a lot going on this summer, so I'm going to go over kind of where we failed, but I think what we also did. But again, just to clarify, the city never told Patriot to stop collecting bags that are not put in containers. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. However, so we had no time to get the word out and everything else. Our goal, again, is to go to the policy where we're ticketing people who aren't doing this and also not collecting. Because what happened shortly after that May 10th, and if you watch the public hearing again, you'll see the city attorney in the public hearing mentioned specifically that all the vendors who are, responding to the RFP, they've looked at these new laws. And to Calvin's point, Community Development Director, they base their pricing and their bids off of this new law as well, specifically not having to pick up loose trash bags, right? That's how we got in lower prices. So eventually we understood that we were moving to this policy, number one, for health and safety reasons, for community maintenance and beautification, and number two, again, as from an economics perspective of making sure we lock in kind of the right price structures for trash. Okay, so if we continue the policy of just allowing bags outside of containers, there's likely going to be a rediscussion of the contract with Patriot and the pricing. So we have to be concerned with that. So my plan was always to then move towards the intent of what I thought the law was, which is to make sure that the bag, just like the law states, the bags get set in refuse containers. But we didn't issue that order yet because we were way too damn busy this summer. Just sorry to put it that way, but we were incredibly busy this summer, moving into this building, negotiating a bunch of contracts as it comes to economic development, dealing with a myriad of issues at that time that we weren't ready for that, okay? So again, even though we didn't issue the order, our ultimate goal is that we do want to go ahead and do that, to have people put their trash bags in containers, unless, again, you guys want to rescind the law that was adopted on May 10th, okay? So I asked the residents specifically what were the concerns. I think you'll see kind of two major concerns that he highlighted. I broke them down into four pieces, but they're kind of in groups of two, right? So he was concerned, he said all of the above when I laid out all the different elements, okay? So the first two that are kind of similar is he was concerned that the city did not notify and engage residents enough about the proposed changes in the law, the one that I just talked about, Chapter 13 of the garbage and trash, now solid waste, that we didn't do enough to engage them before the law was approved. Number two, that we didn't do enough of engaging residents before the new contract with Patriot was approved. That was kind of the first bucket of concern from the resident. The second bucket of concern was that, well, after the law was approved and after we approved the Patriot contract, we didn't do enough to get the word out about the changes, right? So I'm going to talk about kind of both of these buckets tonight, because I think I think for the last two buckets, I think you can make that argument that we should have done more with those last two buckets. The first two buckets is really going to be your all's discretion and kind of what you guys want to do in terms of information prior to approval, what more you want to do with that process. But again, I'll talk about items 1 and 2 here in the next two slides, and I'll move over to items 3 and 4 on the remaining slides after that. So in terms of what we did before the laws were approved, again, we certainly complied with the law. We posted the agendas. We held a public hearing on the law as well. So we did everything that was required by the law. And again, we engaged on Facebook and Twitter, letting people know about the agenda itself. So we did notify residents about the agenda. We have very lengthy agendas. So, if there's any particular thing, I guess you would want us to highlight, please let us know in the future. But you can see tonight we had a lot of issues, and it's not for me to determine what's the big issue that residents need to know about, right? I think that would be your guys' call if you want us to kind of emphasize something more than others. But we have this list again of all the links of everything that we did to advertise. And then again, this is for you all to decide if there's anything that you think we should do more of in terms of notification. Clearly, the resident didn't feel that we did enough to notify our residents about the changes in the law and the Patriot contract. But really, it's for you guys to deliberate, maybe not tonight, but think about it and see if there's something else we would want to do as a group to get the word out as things are being proposed. And again, you guys have the best sense of feel for what do you think residents really care about? What do you think really needs to be informed for residents? Yes?
What did we do to get the word out? What exactly did we do?
We had a public hearing. Yeah, we posted an agenda with all the details there for the public hearing, right? Yeah. But again, if you guys want to do something more in the future, let me know. But again, this is your all's discretion about what we can do to get the word out before laws are passed. That's why I just asked the questions here. Recommendations, but the bullet there, do we really want to, I'm concerned about slowing down the processes a lot. We do a lot in the city, and with the extra engagement, more time, if that's going to be a consideration, are we slowing things down? But I think that has to be a conversation among you all to see what we want to do pre-approval of law.
Was there anything in the water bill?
Pre-approval?
No, I'm talking about notification afterwards.
I'm not at that yet. I'm talking about, right now I'm having the conversation about what do we want to do when a new law or a new contract that you all feel is going to impact our residents significantly. What do you want to do prior to the approval if you want to change anything? Again, we followed all steps that we've been doing historically when it came to this. We didn't do anything differently. We didn't hide anything here. We did everything according to the book. But if there's something more you want to do, right, about this, again, because this was an issue that was brought to us, I think, for discussion, I think,
Right.
So I'm leaving that tonight. It's kind of out there for.
So when I spoke to the resident and other residents about the issue, this wasn't the concern. The concern was that in the meeting minutes, we said that a communication would go out.
Yeah, and I'm getting to that.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, but this resident said this was a concern as well.
When I spoke to him, that wasn't it.
That's why I put it on paper. I sent an email, and I laid it out specifically what your concerns were, and he mentioned that.
So let's just keep on.
I'm not beating the resident down. I'm trying to address an issue that was raised to me, and I clarified what the issue was point by point, because I like to be clear on understanding what the issues are, and that was listed as an issue. Thank you. Okay, so afterwards, after the law is approved and the Patriot contract is approved, what did the city do? Could we have done more? Absolutely. But again, we hadn't issued any orders to Patriot to stop collecting it, right? So just want to keep reminding everyone about that. But again, here's a snippet from the spring newsletter. Put trash and garbage in covered or tightly sealed containers. So it's not something like we've never told residents not to do this, number one. Number two, you look at the city website under the trash and recycling services, guess what was put up there? Chapter 13, the new law, right? And the updated curbed trash guidelines as well. Should we have posted that on our main page? Sure, you can make that argument, absolutely, right? We were preparing an actual, to your point, a newsletter that would go out in the water bill. That was being reviewed, again, crafted. Calvin and I were incredibly busy this summer, if you guys didn't notice, with this building. So it was under still review process. So the plan was to get that out by September. We were delaying a lot of things this summer, pushing back a lot of things to be done with this move, and then to push this newsletter out in September before we proceeded with that policy. So that's why it wasn't done, to your point, Madam Mayor, in the actual water bill yet, because we hadn't got to that point yet. But we did put it on our website, and an error you can say is that we didn't push that on our main city website, saying, hey, by the way, check out the trash and recycling page if you want updated information. So we dropped the ball on that one, and I'm going to admit that. But again, you look at the actual guidelines, we talk about the 4 carts. That's an important piece, and we want to make sure that residents understand that you can have 4 carts, right? We're giving you the opportunity to make sure you can store. It's not just the 1 cart that we issue for trash and the 1 cart that you issue for recycling. You can get additional carts, up to 2 additional carts as well. And I'm going to bring that up in my last slide as an option. And you know what? I forgot to hand out the slides. Kelly, can you all hand out these slides? Or Keith, you can help me out. I have them right over there. My apologies. I do have a hard copy, and I forgot to hand them out. I was just too excited with the Preston news. There. All right, so Kelly's handing out these slides. I'm going to let you guys catch up to which slide I'm on. So I'm on slide 8. Okay. All right, so slide 8. Okay. So that was the trash guidelines. So where did we perform poorly? So I think the resident, you can say he raised some good issues, right? I think we probably could have done more when it comes to communications, certainly. And that's where, absolutely, we'll take the hit on that one. I'll take the hit on not doing more for communications. I'm going to come up with some recommended reforms that I'll do internally, and then more things that we can do beyond that. So we should have anticipated or known that Patriot was going to do this. Because again, their economies, their pricing was structured on that. So we should have made that assumption. Guess what? Patriot's just going to start doing this. So we have to proactively engage them to tell them to not do this. Does that make sense? And we didn't do that. But we should have anticipated that and made it clear that we're not authorizing them to do this. So then, therefore, we should have published something probably sooner, knowing that maybe Patriot would jump the gun here and start acting on that policy. So you can make the argument that we shouldn't have waited for the September edition. Despite everything we were doing, we should have got that out quicker, and we dropped the ball on that one.
Well, you do have to sleep.
Yeah. But certainly, again, if this is a major issue for our residents, then I think I should be more aware of that and do more of an effort.
Look, you're human. I mean, no one's perfect.
There was a lot going on.
Right. Not to make excuses, but I mean, something's going to happen. Your mistake's going to happen. And then this is one mistake out of all the things that we've done this summer. That's darn good, because we had a lot going on, like you mentioned. So
I think what it is, I think the residents, and it wasn't just him, he was speaking on behalf of a number of residents, they were just shocked by it.
Yeah.
And you add that to a bunch of other things, that kind of leads a little bit to a bit of distrust. So we have to move that needle back to trust with our residents, and you kind of do that with proactive communication.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm going to do.
Which I know is what you're trying to work here towards.
Yeah.
That was the gist of the issue, was that it was just a shock to folks.
Yeah, I can understand that. But again, it wasn't a city-directed shock, if that makes sense.
It does, but at the end of the day, it still lands on our lap.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm going to keep bringing up points here, absolutely. So again, we should have posted the notice, not just on our trash and recycling services page, but the main city webpage, and also promote that on social media as well. But if you notice, we were using our verbal message boards for a lot of things this summer, our social media postings for a lot of things this summer, but maybe perhaps this should have been raised, and this is again where I'm going to ask for your assistance to kind of let us know, hey, what are those key issues that you think I will try to anticipate the best I can to serve you all. That's my job to you all, but I also need your all's help as well as council members who are engaging with the community, understand what the key issues are. Remind me, hey, this hasn't been promoted yet, and we think you should be promoting this information. Let us know, and we're happy to do that. Again, we should have proactively reminded Patriot about not doing this, to give us more time to put the messaging out, variable message boards, all the things that we normally do, like we did for decals, which I'm going to touch on here in a couple slides, to get the word out. So reforms that we're looking at, I think the newsletter that our staff, especially Keith, does a great job in kind of compiling with all the departments. I want to make sure we more clearly break down all the new laws that are posted there, right, that have been approved during that period, so that we can say, hey, we did do our due diligence in letting residents know about all the new laws and summarizing how it may impact them as well. So we'll make a better effort to do that in our newsletters that we have. During our internal departmental briefings to me, I want to add more of a communications discussion to that as well, so we can, as we look at things that we've done, we can talk about, well, what needs to be more proactively messaged to residents. So that's kind of more of an internal reform. This is where I ask your all's help as well. Let me know. So if you guys, notice the stuff in July and say, hey, we need to push out some messaging on this, shoot me an email or give me a call and say, hey, we think this is important to residents, and we feel that you should start getting on that proactive messaging now, right? That help me understand kind of what the priorities are. Now, again, I'll do my best to try to anticipate what could be a shock to our residents and more proactively engage on those issues, but please help me out with that as well to the best of your ability. And then potentially hiring the communications manager sooner than we have budgeted right now in the long-range budget. Keith brought that up earlier, that all other jurisdictions, they have this function of a communications person. So if we prioritize communications as something important, right, is one of the things we're doing bad as a city, is not communicating. If it's not, then ignore this. If it is, though, this is one thing that I would say we should recommend, or we should evaluate sooner rather than later. Before I move on to kind of my other recommendations, I just do want to point out an important note about communications, that regardless of the failure here, I don't want us to overhype what communications does and how, quote unquote, it's the be-all end-all of solving everything. I want to bring us back to the decals. So we stopped doing decals for many years, and then we brought them back. And many of you were serving or on the council when we did that, and we did a big campaign to get the message out. That improved compliance? Nope. You know what started improving compliance? Enforcement. People did not know. I didn't know this was happening. Well, we did everything we could to get the messaging out. So yes, communications is something we should do. I'm not denying we should do, but please do not make it seem like that is the end-all, resolving all issues. It doesn't mean we don't do it, but just I bring us back this very real-world example that people started becoming more aware of the decal issue when we started ticketing people for not having decals versus putting it on a variable message board. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Laszlo?
Yes.
When did you say the communications manager is projected to be brought on?
I have to look at my budget. I want to say FY25 is when we have it right now, yeah. Right now, we have just the customer service person who would end up working for them, but they're really, you look at the lobby downstairs, answering phone, they're not necessarily doing what we're talking about here tonight. That would be a professional, but just like the schools with Ms. Kara Grasser, who they brought on to help them with more proactive communication. That's the type of position we would be looking at.
That would be an FTE costing about, what, 75?
If you're lucky.
If we're lucky, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking in ballparks of 80 and up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to get a very junior person. And
Yeah.
It's not what you need.
So again, I believe only enforcement of trash being left out via code enforcement citations and Patriot actually not collecting loose bags, that's the way you're actually going to raise awareness about this law and achieve compliance. Not to justify what happened, but I think, again, going back to the decal example, you want to let people know that this is illegal. Just like the decals, it's enforcement that actually makes that happen, right? Most people are very busy in the world. They're not paying attention to the messaging that we're doing. They're living their lives. And I believe this is still an important policy. I would not recommend rescinding the requirement of trash bags in containers. Please talk to Brandy Station residents. I've been working the lobby the last couple weeks. It's been a great experience because I get to engage with residents who come on in. And I may try to keep that permanent and just spend a little bit of time downstairs and talking to residents who come in. But there's a rodent problem there, and we're actually evaluating how to help them out with this as well, because a lot of loose bags as well. We don't want that expanding to the rest of our city as well. So I still feel this is a very important policy that we should not abandon. Fix now, I talked about other reforms that will help for future corrections and communications. If we want to fix this specific communication error, if we want to call it a communication error for this specific issue, there's a couple recommendations. So I was going to direct Patriot to keep collecting loose trash bags until the October 5th collection, to give us that good month to get it out as soon as possible. We're not even going to wait for the water bill. We're going to do a separate mailer of just that one newsletter letting people know that this issue is coming. So at least give us some time to message before the October 5th collection. That's my first recommendation.
Wants to send a mailer.
Mailer.
What I wrote today, my problem with Giovanna and water billing is if I have it to them by Friday, it will go with the water
go.
It will go. Okay, so we'll get it out with the next water bill.
With the next water
With the
bill.
next water bill,
'Cause
absolutely.
I don't see the need to spend
Okay.
extra.
Good, yeah. So that's good news, thank you. Okay, good. So do you guys concur then that we tell Patriot, keep collecting loose trash bags until October 5th?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then we could consider funding additional containers, one container per resident to, again, to increase the container capacity to help the people eliminate the need for loose bags. Again, I was brought a problem, and I'm making recommendations. These they may not be the best recommendations, but I'm looking at solutions for this. I presented communications reforms, and I'm presenting, if we did an error here, if you believe that we did something wrong here and we want to correct it, this is just a thought that came to mind as well. So,
That's a lot.
Okay, I agree.
230,000.
I mean, you can go to the local hardware.
The city has so many needs.
Right, yeah.
I agree.
The local hardware store, you can buy a smaller one for $35.
And
Yeah.
you
I'm
can also
sorry?
order it from them directly. I tried, but they don't have it.
You can purchase one at the local hardware store, a small one, for like $30. Yeah.
Great. So I guess, any questions on this? I was asked to address this issue, and I hope I did a good job tonight.
Well,
Doing that, yeah.
I think Councilmember Maya brought up an issue that Patriot, we can up to 4 trash containers per household, but if you call them and you want an additional trash container, but they don't have them, could we just check with them to see what that holdup is or what the problem is with that?
Do you want to come up to the mic?
I spoke with Patriot today, and they said they had a number of cans available.
Okay.
So it's up to 4 cans, but that's any configuration of trash and recycling. So if you've got 3 trash and 1 recycling, or 2 and 2, however.
I think we should reiterate that in the newsletter that's going out
Okay.
in the water bill, that
Yeah.
you can get up to 4, a couple of other trash cans if you need them, so long as you have a total of 4.
That's,
Well, I'll
You
review,
know.
I'll make sure that the key items we want to highlight, because we're going to put a lot, because there's other parts to the code, but the key thing we want to highlight up front, guess what? You have to put bags in containers now, but you can have up to 4 containers.
That's huge.
Yeah,
Cost of it.
yeah, we'll make sure. Is it, you already have the translation in Spanish? Spanish as well?
it's going to be one letter, English on the front, Spanish on the back.
Are the bins free? Or is it, I think it was like
No, there's a charge to.
$75, I believe, right?
Well,
Yeah, that-
actually, I think they have some that are available for like 60 or
60 now?
50,
Yeah,
50.
there's a-
They're working on that.
Yeah, that's why I remember I came back with this
Yeah.
consideration if we wanted to buy it for residents.
That was my
But
question.
we're willing to pay.
Oh, yeah, I know, some residents will pay, yeah.
And I just wanted to address Councilwoman Hampton. You mentioned the smaller carts for like $30.
Yeah.
Let me just advise you that the way it works is, I mean, you can purchase a cart of your own, but Patriot, with neither the city or Patriot, per the ordinance, is responsible for any theft, damage, or loss of any
Right.
carts like that, just,
I know, that's what I had to do. I had to go buy an extra one
right.
because one of mine disappeared one time.
But the other thing to consider too, and we tell people to, you also put your addresses
Oh, yeah.
on them. And you,
It's
but
spray painted, it's printed on there.
it's amazing how in demand they are.
Yeah, this is a few years back, that's why I got the second one.
The other problem is if you get sometimes the smaller cans, and that won't work with the side load arm. So it needs to be then like a 96 cart. He also has 64s, but it's the structure and the shape of it that works with the cart handle, or the truck arm.
Mr. City Manager, in that newsletter, can you put the contact number for Patriot also so they know where to call to purchase additional cards? Yeah, good, thank you.
That's in, Patriot's number is in the letter, and also will be the Public Works email for any additional questions or requests.
Great, 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 great.
What about like holidays like Christmas? I mean, of course, you're just gonna have to have bags on the side. We have exceptions?
It's not in the ordinance, but like some of our other jurisdictions, yes, and that's one thing I thought about between, like maybe the week before or week of Christmas, week of Thanksgiving, you're going to have excess bags, so you could make an exception at that time. I would use caution with that because a lot of those bags at that time of year are going to contain food, which is going to attract wildlife. So if, hopefully, you know, you get lucky, but that time of year, it's a lot of food content. But yes, we could make exceptions during holidays.
Let me know if you guys would want to, because then, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how, I think, I might have been late towards our discussion, because I don't know how I missed this, but, so the issue was that Patriot was not collecting loose bags on the curb?
It was a mixed bag, because there were reports that they were in some areas and weren't in others. But there was a driver apparently who told residents that, I think the Blooms HOA told them that they can't, and then they're like, no, it's actually the city who told them they can't. The answer was none of the above told them they can't.
No, before
Yeah.
the ordinance change. Before that new law came in effect, it was an issue that we're not collecting the loose bags?
No, they were, yeah.
So then, now we're saying that not to collect the loose bags?
So what happened was
So that makes no sense.
last Wednesday, people, a number of residents had bags out there, not in the trash can.
Okay.
And they come back home on Wednesday night, the trash can's empty, but their bags were left there. And the concern, the anger or the confusion was that they weren't informed. And so one of the residents actually went, who evidently we do have residents that listen to meetings,
Yeah.
actually went into the minutes and found where a notification was promised. So that's where the concern, the frustration emerged.
Yeah, and again, we would have notified before we made any decision to enact that policy.
I mean, I'm just confused because for the old law, they picked up trash bags.
But they're not
In
doing
some
it.
neighborhoods, okay, they did not. But now we're saying blanket the whole city, no trash bags be picked up. Is
That was the new law.
It's a health issue.
Now
To
we're
give
gonna
you
have
an example-
residents take
To give you an
excess
example,
trash
this past weekend, I had to pick up a dead rat in my backyard. I've lived in that
Oh,
house
yeah, no.
since birth.
But where are they gonna put the excess trash in?
Do you have a trash bag?
No.
Trash can.
If the ones did not fit the last period.
You can get 4 trash.
Yeah, if they want to pay for it, right? If they do not pay for it, it's going to go either outside in the backyard, back in the garage, or on the side of the street.
And they weren't doing.
Well, I'm just saying, why are we leaving trash? The whole point of beautification of our city is to pick up trash.
But
not
we
leave
don't
the
want
trash.
loose, but you don't want loose trash with food.
But it's only 24 hours. It's literally, they're putting it out on the curb.
No, it's before that too.
Yeah, it doesn't take.
I'm gonna
That means it doesn't,
So when the trash goes out on the curb
But
the night before.
remember,
right?
not,
they're holding it
Hold on, one at a
outside.
time, guys, I can't keep up with
but
it.
remember, not every house has a garage
Right.
where they keep the trash can. So what the whole entire city is seeing is people leave their trash cans outside, overflowing, the lid's not down, or they have the trash bags on the ground. So you have everything from Mortimer the mouse going after the trash to Charlie the crow coming down from the sky and picking at the trash, loose dogs, and you come out and there's just trash everywhere.
And it's not being picked up, you're saying?
From the resident leaving it in the back before putting it to the front.
But they used to.
They didn't used to pick up loose trash.
Not loose trash.
No, I
it's
mean,
good.
trash bags, tied up trash bags. I don't know what you're talking about, loose trash. I'm talking
Well,
about,
Councilmember Hammond's point, animals get to it. Yeah.
so you're saying in that 24-hour period, we're worried about rodents and dogs going into
Yes.
the trash bins
And before that 24 hours.
that they can go into currently right now.
The bags.
They go to bins too. You don't think a raccoon goes into a trash?
If it's closed.
I just don't understand why we're gonna downgrade services and leave the trash outside when they're already picking up trash.
We did that.
See, it's,
We already did
I know, that's why, I don't know how I missed this. I would have been,
It would actually make us pretty much consistent with most of our neighboring jurisdictions. Manassas requires the same thing. You cannot put trash out in a garbage bag for that reason.
yeah. I mean, if I was your opponent, I would nail you you wanting trash bags to be
Well,
outside the
in
can.
all fairness, COVID raised a lot of awareness towards things that contamination that you wouldn't think about. If you notice, a lot of trash collection changed, everything changed, so people became aware of contact contamination. And the idea of loose trash and scattered trash, not just rodents, but for, contaminants and pathogens and so on, became a real issue, and now
we're
it's,
gonna have that issue regardless, right now. It's gonna go back outside. Where do you think the road is gonna go, dig through there for a week now? Yeah, but still, it didn't solve a problem, though.
Tickets solve problems.
Hey, give him a drug test.
It didn't solve any problem. Because, I mean, they're not gonna put, if they don't even put it in the garage, you know, if they want to leave it outside, doesn't matter if it's on a curb or on a lawn, the dogs, rodents, whatever it is, will still be attracted to that.
But if it's in a trash can, they're not gonna be able to get into it. And that's the whole idea behind it.
No, I'm saying that, extra trash.
But it'll be, the extra trash has to be in a trash can to be picked up.
Yeah, Charlie the Crow can't get it.
And more than one mouse.
So after the trash is picked up, the
Yeah.
can is empty, so
So
the
they
person
put-
takes the empty can back to the house and puts the trash in the can.
I mean, all right. Makes no sense to me, but.
So is there anything related to communications, either pre-approval or post-approval that you guys want to talk about tonight, or you guys want to think about it, bring it up?
Pre-approval, we've done everything we possibly can, short of putting things up on the burial board, right?
Just, I'm not sure how effective they are, but they're annoying, but they seem to get the word out. Those robocalls that you guys use from time to time.
Those have not been popular recently.
Well, but if we did them, I know they're not popular, but they do go out and tell people you must put your trash in the trash recycling.
If that's something you guys want us to do, we can do that. We can do a
Why
robocall.
not? Yeah.
Okay. Do a
And do
robocall.
that right before October 5th?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what's the violation? Is there a fine? What is the?
There's a fine, I want to say it's $50, but we don't have that capability yet. We've been working with the SmartGov vendor. It was Dude Solutions was the company that did comprehensive IT work order systems for community development departments that have development services, general services, and public works under one department like we do as a city. In some areas, they split that out. We went with them. They were sold 2 times over the last 2 years to companies who are more focused on the public works component, the engineering standpoint, and not the code enforcement and the other elements as well. So that's been lagging. That's going to be another issue we're going to be talking about as well. But they don't have the ticketing capability in that software. So we're going to evaluate other options, including the police ticketing system as well. But we still have a ways to go before getting that technology solution down and the payment process. Because we probably just start issuing tickets. But you need to have a payment mechanism in place that's going to satisfy our auditors. And that involves the technology piece as well.
Or just fall under the code enforcement?
Yeah, that's going to be code enforcement. So again, we'll right now, we're still letting people know and about the issue. But in terms of actual ticketing, which is allowed per the new law, we're not able to achieve that. We can't implement that yet. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on this issue?
I beg your pardon?
Anything else on this issue?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
everybody's pretty well exhausted their thoughts.
Okay. I wanted to bring up one update because there was a resident from the first residence time who talked about the commercial vehicles. Remember that? So I know I believe I've sent you guys emails about this before, but I guess just to let the public know, we did move quickly on that. We issued an RFP on that, and we budgeted $250,000 for that project, and it came back at $1 million. Yeah, so there was no way we were going to be able to implement it, so Calvin and his team went back, we broke it down, reissued one for just the design, an RFP for just the design piece, to lay out exactly where every sign would go and how much you need, and then we're going to evaluate other options that Calvin's going to brief you all here soon on whether we want to procure the materials ourselves and not get upcharged for that for vendors. So we're going to look at other solutions to try to get this thing at a more reasonable cost. So we are working on it. The design is being done right now. We signed that contract a couple weeks ago. It's a 90-day turnaround, so early fall we should have the design piece back, at which point we'll be able to issue a more clear RFP with that data in hand for what's actually entailed with that project, so we can move forward on it. So I just want to let you all, the residents, know that we are still working on that project. And then lastly, the last manager report item, very informal right now, but I want to just engage with you all and see kind of what process, I guess, you want to take for decoration of the board area, if you will, which starts from the walls when you get out of the elevator and you turn and you pass the city admin. I'm considering all those walls, even this wall out here, and then going down to the stairs plus inside here as your all's area to kind of just decorate. So I don't know if you want to do that via suggestions, how much resident input you want. Do you want to create a committee? I remember a few years ago, we had a City Hall a subcommittee of the governing body with Mayor Rochelle, former council member Carrera, and myself, where we went over the old City Hall, over some of the issues. That could be something we could do, a subcommittee, which would also include a staff member, Tony, who's very good at these things, and of course Lana, who's your city clerk, in that to discuss potential proposals. So I guess it's more kind of open-ended right now. Do you want to just give us a list of things you'd want to see, deliberate amongst yourselves, engage residents, or set a subcommittee? How do you want to evaluate kind of decorating this area?
If we have a committee, I would love to serve on that committee, like I did the last time. I think that would be interesting. When I think of decorating, I think of a mixture of things, photographs. Well, for example, a vibrant piece of artwork that you could sit in here, look through the glass and see that multicolored artwork on that big wall over there. Pictures of the city, pictures of the police station, the fire station, the schools, even the new City Hall building, and historical pictures, as has been mentioned.
Yeah, I think the history is important because we don't even have the history of the city is important, and even to Martha's point, to those who've served in the past, because we don't have anything on the website right now that lists all the city council from our initiation to now. And I think in order to build, another way to build pride in the city is for folks to understand the history of the city.
Yeah, and I got a large picture of myself. I'll leave.
Excellent. And those full body ones.
Yeah. And we'll put some candles underneath of it.
Yeah,
Altar.
I think history is important, but also as we look at our new logo here, one of the things that makes our community really unique is the diversity in our community. So I would hope that some of the artwork celebrates Manassas Park diversity. History is important as well, but I think diversity is also very, very important.
We have a number of local artists. We have one
Yes.
who donated a painting, and a friend of Daryl's and a friend of mine. I think we should maybe reach out to the community and get artwork from local artists. That would be appropriate.
Here, here.
But also the wall with the names of former council people, I thought was also a good idea.
We have to ask Lana if we have photos of all the former councils. I know we do the mayors, but I'm thinking the.
Oh, council members.
Council.
That might start taking up a lot of space.
A 5x7 somewhere. Doesn't take up too much space.
I think that should be on the website, honestly. I think we should do names on the wall, but I did see the lack of it on the website, and that was or anywhere online.
Yeah.
Also, the understanding that these walls could be transition. I mean, for a few months, they could be a certain artwork, and then we could change it out with another artist,
Yeah.
and then maybe another artist. I think that would be very
What about
active.
And if we're going to do artwork, what about some artwork from the schools?
I was thinking
That's fine.
Yeah, from the lower grades all the way to the high school. So when we did the high school tour last year, there was some amazing artwork that was in there.
As long as it's not permanent.
Yeah.
Have an opportunity to change out. Yeah.
So it's kind of like what do you call it, when you go to a gallery, like a gallery.
If we're thinking of historical pictures of the city, not historical for the sake of historical, but of the city's past, I was digging through the archives in my basement the other day, and I found this, it's a photo montage of celebrating the 50th year, 1957 to 2007. So this is like a photo slideshow, so perhaps we could maybe get Kelly to look through it and recommend some photographs for us.
DVD player still, or CD?
Would that
So
be
it's just,
possible?
so I guess to try to organize, because there's a lot of ideas coming out today, do you just want us to take these ideas and come back with a recommendation for you all? Okay, all right, good.
That's a
Okay,
good start.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So,
Yeah.
should I give that to Kelly?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, we can give it to Tony, please. Tony's going to help out with it.
Okay. Since it was, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Tony.
Le-
Lana has a lot of
She does, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't need this?
I'll give it to her.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give it to, make sure Lana has.
Kelly in
yeah.
charge of this project?
No,
It's very old, it takes a while.
So if you guys want us, if you guys want us to do this, again, then Tony, myself, the team, and Lana, we want to include Lana as well as the city clerk, we'll get together and map out. We've already started talking about what else we want to do in other parts of City Hall, and then we'll just come back with recommendations for this, and we'll work it out that way.
If it takes a while to open up, don't think it's broken. It was created in 2007, so it's old.
Oh, yeah, actually, so Councilmember Maya raised the question, are we going to include current city council? So we're actually on, when you walk out of the elevator, the goal right now is that on the wall, we're going to have the current governing body members' pictures, and then city departmental, so the department directors, myself, Dean, Lana, as well. So we kind of have those, so people get to know who all the city leadership is as well. And, but that's going to be on that wall. So the current members will be there. And then again, it sounds like we want to do at least names of all former council members like the school board did upstairs, and then the pictures of the mayors that we had before. I would also argue the current mayor should be part of that as well along that. So we'll just kind of figure out where all that goes.
You know, I think it's also important because I know Ms. Connor has this, we have pictures of all of our city halls, so that we can show the evolution of the city. You know, everything from the three houses to the old city hall to this one. I think that's extremely important.
Okay, all right. We'll have to rewatch this video and note everything down.
Okay, have we exhausted this? Okay. Okay, so there is no closed session. Motion to adjourn.
Moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.